And we're live. System malfunction. Rebooting Maddie 1.0 AI clone avatar. Initiate script to introduce live broadcast. Computing freedom of speech. 5, 4, 3, 2, and... Welcome to Game Theory Gang. I'm Maddie Allen of HEXConference.com with ChrispyMan of HEXFire.io, the great Tobiwan Hexobi, and our special guest for tonight, insert guest name here. We've got a great show for you tonight, so go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button and share this out. Thousands of people who are watching on the replay, reveal yourselves in the comments by asking a question or making an observation. Welcome to the leading crypto game theory show, covering the best analysis of HEX and PulseChain. Remember, we can't always tell what's real these days, except when it comes to HEX as real DeFi. Powering down AI impersonator, loading the gang of organic broadcasters. Remembering this is not financial advice, but rather freedom of speech and commentary. Let's go. What's up? We're real.
That's crazy. It reminded for a split second. It reminded me of Max Headroom. It's like Max Headroom. Yeah.
And I'd like to introduce myself. I'm insert guest name here.
Our guest is WaLLrus from Liquid Loans. Welcome.
Hello, insert host name here.
That's wild, dude. So that's like legit all just like your face and then AI generated text and voice and all of it.
3 minutes of video of me talking about something else, and now I can type anything and it'll be my voice cloned. It'll be my lips moving. It's pretty freaky.
Crazy, dude. That's spooky
so
shit.
I can make you say anything, huh?
That's right.
Man,
what would you make me say, Crispy?
It is a few generations away, man. Like what people are doing with like the isolated environments when they even relatively what we would say are not powerful AI systems when they're trained properly in small settings, especially when they're I don't know what they call it, where they're working with each other. It's already getting out of hand, man. This stuff is so powerful. It's insane. It's insane.
I think it's exciting, but it's also a little spooky, man, when you think of like national security and stuff and like how easily people are already swayed by bullshit. It's like there's going to have to be some checks and balances to keep this from
the one that sent a spine up my shiver was you guys know from Inception they talk about the totems and they have those little things where they don't tell anybody what it's like. There are like couples that have words that they own that they literally will walk away from all tech, tell the other one to make sure they always know if it's AI on the other side. I was like, oh, okay. We're at that point, man. You gotta have code words. All right. This is whew.
It's like is that kind of like a safe word? That's a different thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, not for as sexy as a reason, but still safe.
Right. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, it's crazy, dude.
Look, HEX is real DeFi, and we know that. And on the thumbnail today, we're talking about USDL being also real DeFi, and it's backed by something different than dollars in a bank account. And so I'm really excited for our discussion tonight and hear from WaLLrus about all the different types of things going on with liquid loans. So and like all the other things happening in HEX and PulseChain, I think we're gonna have a great episode tonight.
I was on a call not too long ago, and there are some big brains that are very, very long now. They're like, nah, bottom's in, we're good. And they're guys that are usually a little more like balanced. No, I think we're good. Yeah, we're gonna be trending up. They're like, no, we're good. Like they said it as a matter of fact, and they don't usually speak that way. So they're guys that I would be like, all right, we're feeling bullish now.
It's good. It's good. It's funny too, man. It's like I'm really glad to have you on with us tonight because it's like the other things that have launched, which I still think long term, have promise. I'm wrecked on all of them. So like Mintra wrecked. Like Hexy bastard. I didn't sacrifice for any other stuff, but it's like I got into their liquidity pools because their yield looked good. Wrecked. Like everything that I decided to like, well, I might as well invest a little bit over there to kind of see how that plays out. Wrecked. This crushing it. Like I've literally made more in yield in loan from the stability pool and the LP rewards than I got from my sacrifice. So it's like I'm 2x. So fuck all y'all. It's like
tell us you're a whale without telling us you're a whale.
Yeah, I'm not a whale. It's percentages.
Yeah, right now, like I'm hoping to see the loan chart, move around. I know that's one that again, especially for early sacrifice, again, there's a lot that goes into it, looking at some of the bigger bonuses and how stuff comes out. But it's still just that, that's tough. But like, man, when you look at the yield numbers for loan holders too, not just for USDL, when you look at the participation, we'll touch on a couple stats. Like, the stats are gaudy. And when you think about where we are in this upswing, like the numbers start to get really, really spicy really quick. Like I said, the charts and LP come around, but when you look at participation, when you look at yield, like I've got some numbers here when we're ready to jump into one subject or another, man. Like, I could not be happier. And it's not just an LL thing. I think this is very much like a community pulse chain. Like, this community likes some DeFi, man. And like, I've got some numbers to back it up they really highlight like how much this system is using DeFi. It's gnarly, man. I'm very excited.
Yes. Yep. And the thing is too, it's like with
I'm
the
excited
rewards,
as well, my friend.
with the rewards being like in a token, right? Like not what you're staking. It's not like more of the same. Like, you're getting this third thing. So kind of like incentive token. Like I'm still, I still got my my farming going on over on PulseX, but when you see the ink token just continuously getting slaughtered, it's like, hey, it's like my yield I'm still making a lot of ink, but it's not nearly what it was once worth. And you don't see any potential like future use case, like, because Richard's not come, forward with any ideas about a DAO or anything that had been kind of tossed around in some of those private chats early on, of like what's going to happen with ink. Whereas with loan, it's like, it's pretty apparent for anyone that's taken a little time, which I actually did this time, to do a little homework and see the use case like going forward and what it is that kind of leads up the value of loan. If that's what you're getting paid out in, I personally, I mean, not to shit on Richard stuff at all, but I just call, I call it like I see it when it comes to math. And it's like, if I'm going to get an incentive token, I would rather it be loan right now than ink, personally.
Well, and these things, again, they like, part of the reason that even inks played out the way it is, the reason that Pulse and PulseX bonding is so thick. And this is something we may have touched on this show. I know I talked with like Axis and Sloth about it. There ends up being this like artificial weight when there's not other things to go do. And we'll highlight a few of them in LL. Like it's every system, right? It's just how ecosystems work. So, all right, you got a big bag of this stuff. Prices are down, so you're not selling it. All right, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to go farm ink token. So is everybody else. So it not only does everyone's pushing it down because it's the way they're trying to make some yield off it. So to everyone else, they just see that as cash flow, right? I don't care what the ticker symbol is. It's cash flow, right? That's how they see it. And then you get everyone trying to play in it. So that liquidity is super thick. Well, you can see now, like, that liquidity started to thin when LL came out. There's something else to do. There's another good yield number. There's more things to go out and play with, right? You see validators. The validators started to trend down. And I haven't confirmed that one, but I want to go check a few of those addresses and see if that's what some of those players have come out and done. And so this isn't even like, oh, LL is better than everything. It's, if there's something else to do, that those yields will go up as well. If 10% of the validators say, hey, we're going to go play this game now, you're going to see that pump on validators, right? Those guys are going to get a higher percent of the yield. If people move out of Pulse and PulseX, you're going to see that yield go up. So and again, we'll highlight a few in our system as well, but the more good stuff there's more value to create. And we're going to see this stuff pump everywhere. Like, the things are symbiotic. Yeah.
Well, and I think the community is learning too, because it's like it was a thing for a minute there where it's like people were chasing the yield numbers. It's like, well, man, hey, I'm making, well, heck, look at wasn't it Pepe that Richard actually put on PulseX that had ridiculous yield for like a day or something, right? And then he pulled it, and then it was a harsh lesson for those that played that game. And and then other ones where it's like, with like, not to shit on Hexy Bastard, I like the guy. And I think that their protocol has some promise going forward, but the payouts in BBC are limp, let's say, because that chart is wrecked. And until they come out with some use case for that, just kind of like ink, it's like, there's nothing that kind of holds up the bottom end of it. It's like, yeah, I'm getting this great percentage return, but then it just falls off a cliff because the value of the thing you're getting is getting wrecked, and there's nothing to prop it up. So I think really, that there's
yeah, I think that there are strengths like, around the board in a number of things. I have been particularly impressed that 9inch allows you to buy HEX on Ethereum. You remember that HEX, the HEX on Ethereum that we used to hold so dear? Well, yeah. I still like it, and I'm kind of pissed that Uniswap pretended
they were cosplaying like DeFi as much as Craig Wright was cosplaying as Satoshi, but people haven't figured it out yet. And so for Hex to be gate kept from the place where we taught people how to buy it. I mean, this is crypto history gone wrong for the people who thought they were DeFi, and it turns out they're centralized. So if Uniswap can go wrong, the people who invented decentralized swapping and released it into the world, and now it can't be stopped. What does it say about having a stable coin with dollars that are sitting in a bank account? What kind of control do you have there? And so if you have USDL, I mean, it seems just to me that the game theory of being able to actually create a stable value of $1 based on backing it with Pulse, I mean, that's a really big deal. That's definitely historic in my mind in terms of being able to combine that technology with PulseChain, low fees.
Yeah.
I mean, a stable coin is it's probably going to be the killer app of crypto for a lot of people. So WaLLrus, I can't wait to hear what some of your thoughts are in that domain.
So I brought this up a few times, and I think it's one that we just need to say it over and over and over, kind of like how we were talking about a little bit in the green room, like Papa B. Papa B has some things that as soon as you hear the first 5 words, everybody can repeat the rest of the rant because he said it over and over, and the community just committed to his pitch. The thing about low fees is much more than the fact that me and Toby save $8 or whatever it is on a transaction. That's not why it's important. Why it's important is because it affects behaviors. People can go use this stuff, right? Whether that means that they're claiming and playing with LL, whether it means things that I think are really important, like, hey, send a test transaction. That sounds so juvenile and simple. You can't do that on ETH in a bull run. How many players are willing to go spend $40 to make sure? Can't do it. But when it's tenths of a penny, you can do it on PulseChain. You can make sure that stuff's safe. How many people want to have a wallet that does not connect to anything, that's literally send and receive only, and then they operate and connect wallets on the outside and use proper, wallet hygiene, like to avoid a lot of the things we've seen, things like the ledger hack that just happened? Well, you can afford to do that on PulseChain. People use multi-sig, all these things we talk about that take time, or just having people go through and look and spend the time to make sure that things are working properly. You can do them when it doesn't cost you 10, 20, 40, $50 to do transactions. So it's like PulseChain is making all this stuff happen. Like, it's one of those things. You brought up the OG Hex on ETH. Like, don't forget the one that brought you to the dance. Like, there, we're building stuff on top. So right now we're the shiny thing, but like, don't forget the reasons that a lot of these things are here. Like, these are tools that have a lot of assets that do cool stuff on top. But like, don't forget the one that you brought to the dance. Like, these things are all very, very important. And I'll pause there in case you want to jump on that, and then we can do some LL stuff.
I like that attitude a lot. And no, I just had a reaction to one of the things you said. If somebody's new here in the past 3 years, they probably never knew of a test transaction, which what we mean by that is on mainnet Ethereum, where you're sending a small amount to make sure you have the address right. And so you used to be able to do things to check to make sure that the programmable money is going to work out for you, and it's not just going to get sent to a wrong address or something. So there's there's other ways to check that that somebody hasn't inserted a malicious address that looks actually a lot like your normal address. There's different ways to check that. But yeah, one of the ways that we, I mean, the list of things that you can do with low fees, I love how you brought it to behavior first and foremost, because, that's an area that I'm really interested in, is crypto psychology, how HEX allows people to do something with their savings behavior that wasn't possible before, which is to, prove to yourself and the world you're going to hold for a certain amount of time and put your money where your mouth is. So, yeah.
And that I know it's stuff that you highlight. And just quickly, I know it's kind of a tangent here, but that's one thing I think about HEX and hardware wallets. So I actually use different stuff for the way I set things up. I don't use hardware wallets for most things, but where I like to highlight them is they just slow people down. Like, if you have to, if you're sitting here and you pull out their phone, and you're like, and you just start to rip because you see a candle or this or that, like it just starts to slow things down. If you're like, hey, me go I got to grab a hardware wallet. I got to sit down. And you have to go through your routine and your ritual to do things properly. Slowing things down is important. And I think that's one of my favorite things about HEX is if your first question about HEX is like, how long am I going to hold? It just has that calming presence of like, okay, like when you're going through these things, like you don't have to look at a 15-minute chart or chase a candle. Now, again, some players they're going to trade. There's all kinds of neat stuff for that stuff. But I think it just comes from a bit of the ethos of just slow down, calm down, extend time horizons. I think all that stuff's super, super valuable. Like it's probably my favorite thing about it.
I think the hardware wallet comes into play whenever people are storing more than maybe $1,000 or $10,000 worth of crypto. The reason that it's so necessary is that even though there is a certain level of encryption in your MetaMask or whatever wallet you use that stores your seed phrase on a hot device, a device that touches the internet like most of us are using, it's hard to run a crypto transaction when you're not connected to the internet, unless you have your seed phrase is actually living on your device connected to the internet. The hardware device doesn't count as being connected to the internet because it has a one-way function built into the cord and stuff. And so, so like in the world of AI where it can change my lips and clone my voice and everything, it's extra important to store your seed phrase only on a hardware device that then connects to the internet, because the hardware device doesn't actually touch your seed phrase with the internet, if that makes any sense. So, and we had a question from our old friend Hex19, who I love seeing in the chat here. Welcome. It's really
Happy
good
holidays,
to hear from you.
Hex19.
Yeah.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Right.
I've had the pleasure of getting a chance to talk to him several times. Him and his family are incredibly wonderful people.
They are. And he has a question here. He said, "Hi guys." He's working liquid loans, claiming loan every 4 hours. And it looks like he's asking for a recommendation for an online calculator.
I'm not sure. I mentioned the other day, he was in the chat. I'm not sure what he means for the online calculator, but 19, obviously you got all my information, man. If you need something particular, just reach out to me, brother.
Cool. Yeah, for me,
I hope the wife and the daughter are both doing incredibly well. I've got a chance to talk to them too much recently, so I hope they're well.
Definitely. Yeah, likewise. And I think like for me, I just kind of look at what's coming in on the front end for liquid loans, and then kind of calculate, what the forward projection is. Is it known what the rates are going to be going forward, or how that mechanism changes? Because I know when I first clued into it, it was like a 1,400% to stake loan token and earn USDL. Stake USDL and earn loan token. And then it dropped to 400% at one point.
So that's one of the things that will kind of gets into what Toby brought up previously about, or, the conversation about kind of like weight in the system. So one of the things that's interesting about USDL, again, we've got a couple things that we can go through, is like 75% of it is staked in the stability pool. So much of it is right there. And then another large chunk, the vast majority is in the LP rewards. So what's kind of cool is when we look at all these cool numbers that we're going to kind of chew through here, they're really only basically doing one game, which is kind of this yield generation. Like we haven't seen, we're not seeing it off ramp in certain places. We're not seeing it like paired in huge ways yet with stable coins. We haven't seen the other front ends of other teams and some of the unique things they have coming. This is just kind of like the one thing that they're doing with USDL right now. And what I think that we'll see going forward is kind of as we've seen that USDL as LL came online, you saw participation in other things come down, which is a good thing, right? Like they were probably over participated in kind of lowering those yields. I think we're going to see the same thing with USDL and the stability pool, where right now it's simple, it's easy, everybody's got their training wheels on. For example, we saw that big spike when that whale dropped 9 billion PLS and moved the price down 20 or 30%. No liquidations, none. Everyone in the system is pushed to say those guys are handling everything. You can look through the wallets. And one thing that's on there that's kind of interesting too if you because I've had people bring this up, if you look at the liquidations on our analytics, sometimes they go down. The reason is it's dynamic. So if the same wallet is liquidated and then reopens a vault, it'll move. So it'll go open, closed, or liquidated. And when we see like USDL at a big premium, we saw people being really aggressive and playing with some of that there. So that like, again, so you saw people either a few were small wallets. I think there were a couple of mistakes where people set it at like 110%. I don't think they understood what was going on. But you saw people reopen up. So you'll actually like there's over time frames where like liquidations are like -1. It's kind of funny. But I think we just saw a good example of like we kind of got a big kind of scary red candle wick. Everything in the system's extremely safe. No liquidations. Everyone's positive. But when you see that USDL there, it's weighted because it's like the first line. But we're going to start to see that thin out and go other places, paired with loan, paired with DAI, in other protocols, not just PulseX. And so I think that right now, again, we kind of see this gravity of everyone going to what they know, and where you saw that big 4-digit APR, and that'll start to thin out. And I think we'll see some of these levels actually tend to go back up as well. So you can look at that. The APRs are also, they can be a little difficult, like especially like on loan, because it's not an issuance. It's whatever actually comes through, right? Because it comes from the fees in the system. So the redemptions, if no one redeems, are zero, right? The redemptions, if somebody redeems a crazy amount, are really high that day. So you got to take the average on those things. So again, some of this yield is not as universal, and you got to look at it. So the averages are just that. They're an average. Make sure you're looking and calculating your own. And we're going to add, again, another thing we kind of touched on lightly in the green screen. There's all kinds of neat things to look at. Like this, there's all, like we look at all the platforms with HEX where people are looking at all kinds of different statistics. So the front end now is clean, simple. It has all the things we want, and kind of I wouldn't call it an MVP, but the most you can get while keeping it very, very clean, user-friendly, the Tor, some of those things we've highlighted. But there's all kinds of things that will get built into Dune Analytics and other front ends where people can get into the weeds and, do the sloth thing or the Axis thing where they've just got metrics and facts and figures and wallet tracks and things I've never even thought of. We'll see all that kind of stuff fill out.
Cool. Yeah. So I guess to just like add some context, and I know Toby probably has a question here too, but I guess we didn't like set the scene in the sense of what is liquid loans. It's like a series of DeFi products that was forked over from Ethereum in some ways, and you can correct me on any of this, but it was like a $50 million sacrifice, and so that that's something that apparently the market is valuing very much, and basically it's a system where you have a stable coin that's backed by the underlying token of or underlying coin of the chain, which in this case is PulseChain. And on Ethereum, it would have been it was backed by Ethereum. And I guess you guys had to launch a Oracle service and wait for the initial price of PulseChain to have less likelihood of extreme volatility in order to launch this protocol where basically, unlike Terra Luna, which is like, we have a bunch of Bitcoin and we're backing it with dollars somehow.
Sort of, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something like that.
No, I was talking about Terra Luna. It's kind of backed, and there's kind of these guys doing these things, but here, there's no admin keys. Everything's on chain. There's no team control of any of these functions. Even things like redemptions that we're not turned on for 14 days, like that's in the contract. Like we didn't go flip a switch. LP rewards that are over in 42 days. There's no one to flip a switch. It's in the contract. All those things are already minted and handled. The big thing is that you get the ability to do all these things. All the vaults are segregated. They're every individual user. There's a lot of things about the system that are well thought out that we kind of hope are never a problem, but do have some ways that you can actually go through and do some really neat things, and even some ways that you can be future proofing in case of certain things in the US around some of the things they might add in the future, just because again, they're all over the place with what rules are. So there's some neat things that can be done there. But yeah, the magic is the ability to do zero interest loans, to issue the stable coin. Obviously the yield plays the fun thing, but when we're kind of talking about like what's the backbone, what's really moving the needle, it's the ability to mint the stable coin, and the ability to basically, again, to mint and extract value, not have dormant capital. Like these are pretty vanilla things for TradFi guys, you know?
Let's like also set the scene with like, what is a stable coin? It's not just one thing. There are different experiments people have been running in the world of programmable money and like human trust. And so like, you know, maybe you can expand on the idea of like what the stable coin, while it's supposed to be equal to the value of a dollar, it's not always equal to the value of a dollar.
And the dollar of a value, and the value of a dollar is not that stable. So
some experiments have gone horribly wrong where people lost all their money.
So this was one of those things you can get all the way down to like what's money kind of thing. Like this conversation get pretty deep, but overall, you know, stable coins they're a measuring stick. Like we're trying to like measure economic value in a way that makes sense, right? So there's a few different like things you can get into, like even things like fractional reserve. Like this gets, you know, this can be a pretty long one when I'm trying to think what's the where to sort of put bumpers on the topic. So you want it to be something that's stable enough to measure things in so that you can do commerce, right? Like, there are things that are really helpful, like the unit bias in HEX. Like people don't like owning 0.0036935 of a Bitcoin. That's not enjoyable. That doesn't compute well. Like, I don't know what that number means, right? Like I can tell you what it says on the screen, but like that doesn't make sense to me, right? But hey, I own 10,000 HEX. I own 1,000,000 HEX. Okay, well that makes more sense to me. I'm a little more on board there, right? So the ability to, again, how to affect unit bias, to have things that you can measure in, what they're measured against. Like these are things we kind of take for granted and are not all that, they're not thought as all that intuitive until you do or don't have them. And if you don't have stable measuring sticks, then this thing all of a sudden basically devolves into the crypto version of how many chickens is a cow, right? Like it does get to become difficult. And we don't think well in those terms.
And that's also misleading to price your HEX in dollars if there's not ample liquidity and if the dollar's changing value over time and stuff like that. And so, I really like the definition that you just gave of a stable coin or like the value of money being important as a measuring stick. And
and so there's a lot that goes into this thing, and like how that value is backed is a big thing. And that's why you kind of touched on it about not just price stability, but liquidity is a big part of that. Like you need certain things for things to work well as money, right? There's a lot that goes into it. There's different aspects that you want on certain things, right? So I want all kinds of volatility in HEX, right? Because that's what gives me big green candles, and that's what does all the fun stuff, right? I don't want that in dollars, right? I want those things to be stable. So you want the exact inverse, right? Like, so you want the right set of properties. So back to the kind of question on stable coins is when you're using a stable coin and you want that value to stay in a network, right? So if you're going to be using and you want things denominated on Pulse, all right, what do we all agree is valuable, right? Meme coins, HEX, like everyone's got a different valuation on these things, right? Like even though there's a price of these things, I may not value it there, right? Somebody just sold it, so they didn't value it there. They thought it was worth less, or they wouldn't have sold it, right? So that's where things like stablecoins come in and make these ecosystems make sense. So we're on PulseChain, so we agree on Pulse. Pulse is, the most liquid, and that's why it makes sense to be used as the collateral here. So the stablecoin now, again, gives you this measuring stick to go through and use all these different things to move through and be valuable and do commerce, right? And so a couple of things that kind of show how valuable we think USDL is at this point. There is already more USDL on the chain than USDC in 19 days. There's more USDL. There's more native stablecoin now than any other stablecoin except for DAI at this point. And I would imagine.
Wait, say that again. Hold up. Sorry, say that again.
There's more USDL than any stablecoin but DAI.
Boom.
In 18 days, 19 days.
Not too
Why do you think that is?
It's better. Like if you even DAI, like DAI has some positives, right? There's a reason that the African priest holds a big chunk of it, right? It has better properties than certain things. So, well, actually I can answer by going back to the stablecoin question. So there's, if I'm in the US and if I have to go out through Coinbase and I'm already KYC'd and docs and XYZ, USDC is not terrible. Like it doesn't mean I want to hold a ton of value in it, but I end up having to go through it as sort of a transient means to get back to fiat for whatever I need to do, right? So
it's not real DeFi.
I agree. But if I have to go through and cash out that way, You got to use
It's
the tool
useful.
at hand, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
If
Totally agree.
If you don't want to have certain concerns, and if you don't want to have issues with admin keys, and you do want real DeFi, okay, well, then like you said, USDC doesn't fit the bill. So you want to use the right tool for the right job. There's a reason these other things exist in the ways they do. There's a reason to have exposure to these other things. There's a ton of reasons why these other things make sense in certain cases. But in general, if I don't have these extra things, what I want is almost like a gold-backed currency. I want something that's measurable, that is denominatable, and I don't want admin keys, and I don't want to get the thing revoked, and I want it to be DeFi. And that's what you have with USDL. And the other part is it's symbiotic with these other things of, hey, the more Pulse that's backing up USDL, that means it's not being sold somewhere else. And again, or if you're providing liquidity, like you want these things to have extra routes to provide value. So if it's locked up in vaults, it's not being sold, and then now that value can be extracted in other places, right? So if you're following the WaLLrus accounts, you'll see it. X amount of HEX bought with USDL, X amount of PulseX bought with USDL, X amount of PLS bought with USDL. That's all price positive stuff. Those are the things that you want to have. And again, if we're just there's more properties to this, but when it just comes to DAI, do you want to use the stable coin that's backed by your coin, or the one that's backed by treasury bonds that can be changed, that's on ETH, that's wrapped and brought over a bridge? I know which one I prefer.
Admin keys, they could turn you off at any time. The government could show up and tell, them to blacklist everybody in the world. Like, I don't think these things will happen, but I don't like that they can.
Well, and there's just a value proposition. I make this joke sometimes, turning a 1 into a 0 or 0 into a 1. That chance is small. It adds some level of fear. It's more interesting to talk about than the realistic odds that you actually get frozen, but you can.
It happened this year. Are you kidding me? Coinbase stopped redeeming for a weekend, and that threw the whole thing into panic, and a bunch of people got wrecked, 10%, losing 10% of their value just because they didn't have anything that they could count on. And the OA, the HEX OA, is what saved the entire crypto market from going down in flames.
There's some interesting ways to take advantage of that too. Even if you took an L on that
provable.
one.
It's provable on chain that the HEX OA saved the crypto market because of the partial collapse of stablecoins that are banked by, they're controlled by centralized entities that are cosplaying as decentralized entities.
Well, and that's another one of those is when we talk about risk profile, one of the parts of risk profile is, do I actually know what all the risks are, right? So, I mean, again, there's probably somebody who can look at it and be like, hey, you know what? Nope. I'm just more comfortable with the bank. I mean, I don't agree, but that's a person can come to that conclusion for a variety of different reasons.
Oh yeah.
So
agreed.
So there's that side of it. But when we look for these things, but I think you can measure them, right? There's only so many variables that are hard to measure when you look at something that's entirely on chain, that's vault, that's backed, that doesn't have admin keys. And again, no one knew what the CEO, I forgot his name too, but everybody didn't know what the CEO of, was it Silicon Valley Bank? People knew what he was after that. You didn't realize that guy could screw up your money, and then he does, right? So that's a big part of this. And like, what gives, again, you want to use the right tool for the right job. So I want to highlight all the cool stuff about USDL, but and there's different things that Coast and other guys are doing that we're going to have cool off ramps, hopefully in the future. There's all kinds of really, really interesting things to investigate for how people can move value in and off. And then also another one that I don't think gets talked about enough, but how people can get exposure to certain things in crypto if they're not competent to use crypto. Like there's certain ways to lower the barrier entry that we don't really think about, that we just say, hey, how can we make a wallet easier? How can we hide 12 words? Most people don't do those things. Like there's ways to have much more viable custodians to be able to get exposure to certain things than what we have now. And we see this with something like FTX. We say that wasn't an exchange. That wasn't an exchange. That was somebody's piggy bank and a casino. That's very different than an exchange, right? So even when we look at custodians, there's a spectrum there, just like there's a spectrum of DeFi. And most of the real custodians, we don't really ever engage with them. Things like Fireblocks and Banksa and all these different types. But there's ways to have there's ways to have custodianship and allow people to get exposure to things in crypto with significantly less risk and significantly better risk profiles than what we typically think about. And they don't get investigated enough. And there's teams working on that stuff for PulseChain as well.
I know we got Johnny Chaos in the comments, but I really got to know what Toby's thinking about all this. You're muted.
Mute.
Toby, we can't hear you.
Unmute helps. My dogs have been going a little crazy in the background, so I muted because I didn't want you to hear all the snorting and the crazy goblin noises of my Boston. I brought him up to wave because he was like just over excited. I thought he had to say hello. But yeah, I'm taking some notes. So I want to do the last one, the first one last. So my top of the list, and I've noticed some people in the comments mentioning as well about redemption fees. Would like you to dig into that a little further for us. You know, what not only what it is and how it functions, but like you know, why it was turned off for 14 days. But we'll get that at the end because I think that's probably going to be the one that's going to be the biggest rabbit hole. To touch on something earlier in the conversation about the APR fluctuation, I think there's, and Maddie can speak to this, I'm sure, being the resident psychologist of the HEX community. I think there's a lot of psychology involved because people have done the thing of chasing the APR and getting burned, and chasing the APR and getting burned, or even getting hesitant to chase the APR because then they realize, like, hey, I've been in this pool for so long now, and the market has been sliding off for so long now. I'm literally making my impermanent loss permanent to pull from that, to then go chase this other yield. It turns up to be a puff of smoke and then garbage, right? And not garbage, but maybe for now, right? It's just not doing its thing yet. It's like I agree. I think 9inch has tremendous upside. I think they need better education about, you know, their limit orders and how those work. And, you know, is it a true DEX? Is it pulling from different resources or from different DEXs as far as getting liquidity to execute its pairs like Omni is, which is Tetra's limit order platform, you know, that kind of stuff. So I think, you know, there's growing pains there. One of the things, again, not to just simp all over LL, is like just how good your team has been about describing how all this stuff works together, because it is very complicated. But you like the tutorials are great. It's like, I mean, just to be able to click through these little short videos to explain different parts of it, all the explainer stuff is awesome. The little library AI thing. Is there a picture of her anywhere? I just imagine a hot little librarian with like the librarian glasses. But
we have one. It's funny enough on the team. I don't know if anyone's actually saw it. We have one made. I don't know if it actually pops somewhere. I think there's a little icon. I think you can.
Is there? Okay. All right. Yeah. So I was somehow it's fun for me to imagine that.
It's funny you say that because that's what she is. She's kind of like almost alien colored kind of girl thing. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, I bet that's cool. So, but yeah, so the resources are there. It's like easy to keep track of. It makes you feel like this is something that's backed by a team that's really going to like keep pushing it forward. So I think that that's good. And then, you know, but because of some of that, you know, those earlier, you know, attempts at chasing yield and people getting burned, I think maybe it's going to take a little time for people to swing that way. But we've already seen it. The people that are swinging that way, what happens? The yield starts out high. As more people participate, the yield comes down. So that's just the nature of the game, right? So it's like as more people come in, it's kind of like I'm always joking when, you know, people are talking about validating or whatever. It's like, stay away from my yield. Stay away from my yield. It's like, don't get in my pool. You know, go get in a different
pool. What the hell, man? When were you going to tell me I could earn free money?
Yeah, right. But and then so, also I
on that note, this is one of the stats I was going to drop that's pretty cool about participation.
Yeah.
LL has more vaults open than Liquidity in 18 days.
Oh, wow. No way.
Crushing it.
That's cool.
Over 900 vaults are open.
Very cool. They told people to take their time and understand the system.
Yeah, as everyone should. You know, I mean,
100%.
People get wrecked
and still take your time with it. Like,
yep.
Small.
Well, and also
there's if you go and look, there's a variety of different vaults, and some are very large that are like 1,200% collateral, and there is it. If you like, I always like to use them as my example. If you go ask like Hexastoni Dylan, is he going to say that's stupid? He's going to roast you, like, right? Because that's not how he thinks. But take all the time in the world, right? Like, don't open a vault, look through all the stuff, play with all the tools, take some yield, do some, whatever it is, take your time, do nothing, do the HEX thing, stake for 15 years and wish us well and stand on the outside. All of those things are fine. There is no problem with not touching on these things until you understand them. No problem.
Well, the fees are so cheap. It's like, and it's all percentage based, right? So it's like if it's a 270% yield, on a particular, on what's the staking pool. Is that what that's at now? Like 274 or something, I think. No, that's 62. 235. So on the stability pool, it's like currently at 235. It's percentage, bros. It's a percentage. So, that doesn't mean you have to put in $10,000. Like you can put in $100 and you're still going to earn 237%, just like the guy that put in $10,000. It's a percentage. So, so it's, and the fees are so cheap, it's not, you're not like eating up so much of your fees to get in and out and try some of these things out. And then I was poking at WaLLrus, even though I knew he couldn't give me an answer really, because it's like, it'd be a really hard thing to quantify, is the LP rewards, how it did not have an APR. And just because the way that those are generated and how that's fluctuating so much as far as that that PLP token is being minted and unminted, I guess, or burnt to go back into the individual USDL and PLS that created the pool to begin with. But just like as a case in point, I put like equal dollars in the LP rewards as the stability pool, just so I could kind of get an idea. And it's it depends too, because it's like how quick they refresh, but I'm looking at anywhere of like 1.6 to 2 to 1 as far as the APR, as far as the LP rewards program producing better loan payouts, right? So, do your own math, do whatever, you feel more comfortable with. But to me, that's the clear winner as far as like where to put things, and it's shorter term. And then I guess that'll bring me on around to the final bend here, which is, there was a question I saw and I knew this would come up, and I'm going to let you guys handle it, because it's like, not that it's light work for me, but I feel like maybe I'll get shitty about it, because I think it's garbage. But algo based stablecoins, like there's someone in the chat like asking about it. I've seen prominent members of the community speak about it on Twitter and stuff. To me, I'm like, my first response is, wasn't Luna an algo based stablecoin, bros? We all kind of see how that played out. To me, it feels like, what USDL is doing is definitely like a better way to approach the whole stability pool question, or the stability coin question. So I'm just curious of your thoughts of those people that are, kind of, getting the itch to chase an algo based stability coin, stable coin.
So
I think it's bullshit. But go ahead.
So what are so algo it is not the same in different contexts. If the algorithm is different for maintaining a peg, then we can't say that those two things are the same. How WaLLrus, how is a liquid loans? How's does the algorithm maintain a peg differently than things that haven't worked in the past?
So it gets a little finicky on language. So like, is there coding that controls the peg? Well, yes, but not in a Luna way where it's minting and there's all these variations of things. Like this is collateral backed, right? Like there's just a set of parameters here that control this thing happens, and no one's clicking buttons. Like when someone hits redemption, things redeem. They don't hit redemption, nothing redeems. Like the price of USDL can go anywhere it wants unless the market does something about it, right? So why doesn't it go to $2? Well, it can, but chances are, again, you're going to see people mint and move it down, right? Why doesn't it go to 10 cents? Well, it can, but then there'd be a massive redemption, right? So that's the initial thing versus some of the things that are algorithmic. I think the issue with the algorithms are it's never been successful yet. They've all not just bust, but gone boom.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. So,
well, not liquidity though, right?
In a nutshell, for me, it's like they're not collateral based, right? Like those other ones aren't legitimately collateral based, which is like Maddie's gone on at length even in this stream about how this is backed by the underlying coin of the L1, which is PulseChain. So it's like it has legs, where it just is funny to me. Like we've seen algorithmic stablecoins fail over and over. And then we have a Pulse version that is, trying to work its way into the narratives. And it's like, people, do your own research and be careful, because it's like, to me personally, it's like, I'm not ever, endorsing anything, but there are better, safer options out there. Look on your screen. There are just better options if you want to partake in the stability and the stable coin arena on PulseChain, in my opinion. And then you could even talk about, Coast's coin, collateral based, right? I mean, those types of things make more sense to me. That's more of my TradFi brain working. If I'm off on any of this, you guys feel free to correct me. I was trying to leave it to you guys because I am kind of impassioned about this, because I feel like it's, I feel like there's people that are going to get wrecked, that are going to chase the new algo.
So wrecked how? Wrecked how?
Well, I mean, like chasing a thing that goes bust, like Luna.
What do you mean? Like people? So what went wrong with Luna where people got wrecked that they were chasing it?
Well, they were trying to maintain the peg by minting more coins into oblivion, so it became unsustainable, right? I mean, isn't that in a nutshell what happened?
So
and then when there's someone that's trying to create the same thing on PulseChain, that's more or less a fork of Luna,
but it's not the same.
It's like that's like it's not the same. My understanding is
it has a different mechanism, right? Because
I'm not talking about USDL. USDL is collateral based. I think it's groovy. I'm talking about like the ones that have popped up in chat and that I've seen coming across Twitter, where people are talking about this new algo.
Well, tell me what you're talking about, so I can.
I think they listed. I think it's in the chat as PUSD. I just didn't want to say it, because that whole thing of like people going and buying the things because you said it.
Not allowed to say things on here.
I'm just being cautious.
Again, everyone should be out there experimenting. I mean, again, like I don't write code. I think that's pretty apparent, right? And I think there's so much stuff in the space that we don't have figured out. I think even things like proof of stake, proof of work, I don't think we have that final answer solved yet. So I think you always want to be fair and give room to allow people to try really interesting things and try to build cool stuff or try to market it better or try to redesign things. So I want to be fair in criticisms there. The one thing about something like USDL is it's designed around robustness and safety, and that's why it's over collateralized in the way it is. But that also, again, kind of comes at a deficit of efficiency, right? Like fractional reserves, now they've been perverted and spiraled out of control. They made sense to some point, right? Like if you only really need to have 80% backing to be able to maintain this in a certain way, like there's some capital efficiency to be gained there, right? So there are reasons to pursue these things, right? Like something like Uniswap V2 works really good, right? Well, when you take things like V3 and you can do ranges and concentrate liquidity, it's kind of a form of leverage there in some ways, and it improves capital efficiency in the system, right? So there are reasons to experiment and try these things that I think are valuable. So you want to leave space open. I can't code well enough to even call these things out. I just can look at previous results and say, hey, these haven't worked well. These things have worked extremely well. So I think it's a tough thing for people to get into if they don't understand how things work, but there's going to be value in that. I think that's something that could be solved at some point in the future, but it's certainly not going to be by me or probably the two of us, the two guys on the call. So make sure you understand what you're doing. There's a lot going on there.
The one of the questions in the chat is USDL being immutable in the sense that somebody can't decide to mint more of it without putting in collateral that has to maintain a certain ratio and health of the system. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then see, I would argue with Toby's point, and I certainly think, Toby, that like all of your other points I wholeheartedly agree with. But when it comes to like the idea that USDL can fail, that's assuming that you're like asking for your pulse back later, which like it is, to my understanding in the smart contracts there, like you have a certain set of assumptions to say whether, you can come back and pick it up later or whatever. But if you consider selling your pulse as trading it for a USDL, which it seems like the market values at $1, and like, I'm also assuming, or, basically asking about Liquidity, the protocol where it seemed to have worked on ETH to a greater extent than any other stablecoin that is not sitting in a bank. So look, crypto has to figure this out. And just the idea that like you sold your PLS, if you trade to a stablecoin, you can't come back and complain like, oh, I don't have, like, I really wanted my Pulse. I wanted to hold on to it. I wanted to get it back or something. Like, because that's another way I think to look at like trading for a stable coin that's backed by the currency of the chain. It's like you're valuing in certain assumptions, just like you would with any other stable coin, where there are assumptions where you can lose it and it's not in your control.
Yeah, we're on the same side actually, Maddie, because it's like I think maybe I misspoke or it was unclear. I'm not concerned about USDL or the OX Coast stablecoin. I can't remember what it's called, but whatever their stablecoin is, I'm not concerned about those. Because it's like because they are collateral based. It's like that just clicks for me. That makes sense. It's like that's how it ought to be. If you have something that represents something else and you have collateral to back that up, then ta-da, this is exchangeable for the other thing as at a given ratio. It's like when the dollar used to be backed by gold. Like you could take it in and you could get your equivalents in gold. It's like simple, right? As simple as it gets. My concern are things about like the algo-based ones that some people had mentioned in the chat. I think it's called PUSD, but it's like basically a fork of Luna. And that's the one that was giving me pause. And of course, people need to test these things out and try them out. And maybe that'll be the first one that works and doesn't go boom and wreck a ton of people because it just mints itself into oblivion to try to keep up with a effectively like a bank run, right? But just be careful. There's good options out there, and people just need to be researching and learning about all of these things. And if you come in with an attitude in crypto in general of like, show me the button to push to get rich, number one, fuck off. Pardon me, but it's like number two, it's like I don't work for you. You know what I mean? It's like you didn't hire me to like show you the button to push. And it's like, there's plenty of educational resources out there, and learn about it. Like, are you DeFi, bro? Like, it's like, do you DeFi, bro? It's like, or are you just like want to come in and then just get a Robinhood app and go trade crypto, right? If that's what you want to do. If you want to get into like life-changing shit for the globe, right, and humanity as we know it, then you're in the right space. Hunker down, shut up and listen, learn a little bit, ask some educated questions, and there are people that are going to be more than happy to give you the right answers and point you in the right direction where you can continue to educate yourself, and then maybe you can be a talking head on one of these shows and help to continue to educate others. So I'll step from my stump.
Clip it. Yeah.
It's my Johnny Chaos rant for the stream.
Someone had to get one in since he wasn't here.
Yeah, right. I hope I did you proud, Johnny.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of it with everything, right? It's just you just want to know what things are going on. There's the man himself. Just all these things, right? Like we had a couple, there was some cat I just saw that like he ended stake a day early, right? Like you can mess up almost anything, right? Just take time with these things, man. Like make sure you understand what's really going on with these things. Like sometimes it's hard, I think, whenever like we're communicating, especially in Telegram, but like whenever I see a lot of the questions in L, my first question is hey, some of my USDL is out of the stability pool. Do you know what the stability pool does? It's my very first question. Do you know what it does? Because then you would at least understand what's going on. So like we can get into specifics. And a lot of those things is just, hey, did you know what that did before you clicked the button? And I'm not doing it to flex and be like, hey, look at I know some of you don't. Did that make sense? Like don't be clicking buttons, man. Like this stuff is, it's fake internet money, but it's money, man. Like be careful with these things. Like know what you're doing when you're clicking these buttons. Stuff's important.
I like your style. That's a good posture to take.
Absolutely. Hey, and then to swing back around, because I said we'd cover it last, and then we just kind of skipped it entirely.
The redemption?
The redemption fees thing, because it's like, I think that's important that people understand like the mechanism behind that, why it was kind of, purposely turned off for the first 14 days. I think I know the answer to that already, but just for the audience and for those that asked in chat, I'd love to hear you kind of go into that a little deeper.
Sure.
Because that's one of the things too, like I'm looking, at like, okay, here's my stability pool, here's my staking pool, here's my LP rewards. My staking pool, my redemption fees are kind of low, and it says my current APR is 62%, but it's like that doesn't add up as far as like what I'm earning in USDL. So that gives like, I don't know how to explain that to others that would ask me because I don't understand it myself. It to me seems like the no-brainer thing to do as I earn loan on my stability pool position and my LP rewards. I'm taking that and I'm staking the loan. But I don't see directly how that is where that 62% APR is coming from, because it certainly doesn't add up to that in USDL. And maybe it's like backloaded redemption fees that are coming after the day 14. but I'm just going to let you explain,
Sure.
and then maybe that'll enlighten us all.
So I'll run through the redemption side first. So redemptions are really, really simple. So a redemption is not a repayment of a loan. It's none of those other things. Like, this is its own baby, right? A redemption takes a USDL, burns it, and then takes out $1 worth of pulse. Okay. So why that's important is that's how it maintains that peg, right? So the governing things that you'll see on both sides here for USDL are, if it goes at say $1.04, right? Okay, well, I can still mint it for $1. So I basically get a 4% premium on anything I do. So you're going to see standard arbitrage things between stable coins. And then why would if I can mint and go spend $1.04 for every dollar I'm in on that. And one of the real big cliffhangers you'll see is around $1.10, because that would cover up essentially that 110% collateral. So like anytime you've seen like LUSD and some of these things go around to 103, 104. I think USDL actually hung around like 106, which is kind of cool. Yeah. It just shows why the yield was high. Is interesting stuff. But again, that rolls away pretty quickly, and now you see it R back down. Yeah. But a redemption again is the inverse. So if it goes down to 97 cents, I can still go get $1 worth of pulse over here. So if I can go buy something for 97 cents and then move over here and get $1, I'm just going to do it over and over and over and over again until that thing goes back to the dollar. Yeah. Now there is a redemption fee, which is it's 0.5%. So it's a very small amount. So it's 99.5, right? So there's a few percentage here, but I'm just keeping it simple as we go through. Now, most people probably won't ever actually need to do this. And typically it doesn't move far enough off that like the average guy with 1,000 really wants to do it, but you can, and you absolutely have your option, and people should understand how it functions. So it's as simple as I burn the USDL and I take my $1 worth of PLS. Now, where that comes from is the lowest collateralized vault. So whoever is the riskiest vault in the system, that's where the redemption comes from. So that pulse comes out of there. Now, that doesn't actually liquidate the vault. And if they actually basically get redeemed down past 110, then they actually get to go get the remainder. There's a few things about how that last vault happens. And we can get into some of the kind of specifics there. It kind of can get into a bit of a tricky area, but it's as simple as that. USDL gives you that $1 worth of PLS. And then that fee is what you're seeing in the staking pool. So I'll get to that in just a second. So for those that are like, hold on, this redemption thing does what to whose vault? It is the riskiest vault in the system. So one of the things that we'll probably do on some of the analytics pages, just to explain this further, is a stat that's referred to as debt in front. So it can basically say that if I'm at X percentage, how much USDL is in front of me, so I don't have to worry about being redeemed against. For almost everyone, they're not really going to get hit with this side of it, right? So when you look at it, like right now, when I checked this on a call probably 2 hours before the stream, if you're at like 133%, then you're going to look, you'll look and see that there's like 1 million USDL in front of you. So if you're anything above like 133, you're not going to get redeemed against. It's not going to affect you. Now, again, you want to understand the mechanics. It's always important to know what's going on here. But again, you're not going to get affected. So most players doing anything other than being really aggressive in the single digits aren't going to have to worry about it really directly affecting their vault. And you also don't typically see massive amounts of redemptions in one swing. So I think that kind of touches on about the redemption side. Again, for most people, you just want to understand how the peg works. If you're a more aggressive player who's going to be in those fringes, doing something very specific there, dive in, take some time, look at debt in front. There's some things we can get into if you're sort of I always use the term like power user. If you're someone getting on the edges and you're being aggressive and doing things, there's some things to play with and understand that you're more likely to be directly affected. But again, for the surface level, for most users, you're probably not going to be there. You're not going to be redeemed against basically ever. And that's kind of it. It's what maintains the peg, right? It's the ability to go get the collateral. Like that's what maintains these things.
And now, loan holders. WaLLrus, just a quick question, if I could. So sure. Basically, in regard to that, so the redemption fees, that small, 0.5% or whatever, when people are doing that swap of redeeming USDL for $1 worth of pulse, then those fees are collected and distributed to loan stakers.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, got it. And then the other part of that staked loan reward is issuance gain. So
correct.
That's the other
when people
piece.
actually open the vault and mint USDL.
Got it. So there's a fee affiliated with that as well. And then that USDL is distributed to loan stakers. So those two things together is what combine to make the current APR of the staking of your loan.
Correct. And so why you see why that, and again, that's why we're going to do some of the Dune analytics that'll give you 30-day average, year average, all time, those big spreads, is because you could if no one touched the system today, then your yield 0 for the day, right?
0, right.
But then you're going to see my APR that's over a 7-day average, a computed year, and be like, what happened, man? Where's my money, guys? Right?
And I think it auto claims too. Like when you add to it, I think it claims what's sitting there.
If you add loan, it'll claim on there, or vice versa.
Because I have a friend that's like participating in it as well, and they're like, bro, it's not building up anything. It's like 62% APR. What the fuck? It's like yeah. I'm like, how many times do you add to? He's like, well, I'm adding it every day. I'm compounding it. I'm like, are you looking at your wallet to see that USDL and Pulse are dumping into it every time you click? It's like, hello.
Another quick small one.
Your shit if you want to do the math, right?
I've answered this a few times. This is one thing. If people look on the system, next time anyone's going and they're going to do a repayment or some of those things, if you fill in the prompts and the bars, the statistics that you see will calculate that, right? So if you're like looking, you're like, all right, I made 100 USDL from loan. Okay, I just want to go do that to repay my loan. And you go in there and type 100 and then look at your amount. It's already going to have that 100 off. So I've gotten like a ton of DMs of like, hey, I checked what my debt was and then I paid and it's the same. And you have to work through the transactions on there. So one, that's an easy one to look through there. And then another little just quirk that it's probably helpful for people, especially if they're using things in the system here and if they're kind of just, hey, I'm kind of PulseX, HEX ecosystem, you maybe not had to look at LP or some of these rewards, the way they're issued, or had to repay positions. But if you use the PulseChain scan, there's a tab over there that says coin balance history. And then you can see those updates. And sometimes that can give you clarity to hey, I did X thing. Did it show up in my wallet? That's a way to check there. So that's another feature that's really useful in the Block Explorer.
Cool. Thank you.
I saw some people on a stream. Who was it? Axis and maybe WaLLrus and ChrispyMan. There was one stream about liquid loans, and I looked at Dex Screener like 30 minutes later, and it was USDL was 12 cents or $1.12, or rather, $1.12. And it was at a 12% or a 12-cent premium. I was like, whoa! Lots of people finding out about that, and then do the math. People buying USDL at that price was telling you how much large accounts were valuing. Literally just set it and forget it on taking USDL and earning loan on it.
Yep.
Whether the APY is 1,400% or whatever, 300% or 100% or whatever, you're getting paid. You're getting paid to hold a stablecoin that's backed by Pulse in a sophisticated way
that you can mint.
Yeah.
Dude, I gotta quit coming on the stream because I feel like every damn time we just give away all the alpha, and it's like they're gonna come after my yield. Damn it! Why do we keep spilling the beans?
That's the thing is right now there's a ton of weight in the stability pool. So again, it's all there, but there's lots of other opportunities. And again, it's the same thing. All the caveats about know what you're doing, understand the risk. But for the people who are sitting around on a Tuesday listening to the four of us sit here and yip and yap, guys, there's what is it? There's nothing out here but space and opportunity. Look through some of these LP things. There's a lot of opportunities there, guys.
Yep.
And then, it kind of makes sense that I guess you guys have alluded publicly that there could be more game theory behind loan token. Although I'm not sure if you can go into the details.
Yeah, I can't talk about it.
But I have to ask because it's a game theory show.
Come on, WaLLrus, give us a little something.
Nothing other than just kind of what's there. And if you look, and this was one of the things that I was going to touch on. The TVL we have, I went and looked just out of curiosity. If you look at the TVL that we have in the system now, LL is in the top 25 lending protocols on any chain anywhere in all of crypto. It's in the top 25 in 19 days.
Well, what do you make of that? Why, how's that possible?
Because PulseChain, because people use DeFi here. That's what everyone here is doing. That's why everyone here
product market fit. Is that what you're telling us?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you know, we're talking about the yield side here, but again, like there's like every time another piece comes up, right? So when we came out, again, people pulled out of other things, and then those things got more valuable. Like we're gonna now there's more coins to be moved on dexes. There's more reasons to make transactions that burn PLS. There's more things moving through PulseX. Like all these things are valuable. There's people who are understanding about stablecoins. There's people who are understanding about LP. The savvier they get, the more stuff they come in and do, and these things keep growing. And like this is a community that's had to learn about bridges, that's had to understand, hey, why doesn't Uniswap work? Now, not only is it not fun to have Uniswap not work, but you had to go learn why. How come? Because I got
They
blocked
let me
on
down.
the front end. What's a front
that's
end?
why.
Cool. Where's a good front end then? You have to go through these things. So there's all these things that people have had to learn, and you can see it. There are more users in 19 days on PulseChain than there was on Liquidity on ETH in 3 years. Like there's more open participants right now. And so when you look, when you see what the PLS price could do, not 100x, not 10,000x, not crazy bull run stuff. If no one moved anything in the system and we went up 2.5x, there'd be 100 million in TVL, 100 million. At less, if we got up to
that blows my mind.
3 zeros and a 2, we'd no more participation. If people just left the collateral, we'd be at over 100 million in TVL. How long is it going to be before we surpass DAI on the chain? This is 18 days, guys.
DAI.
There's 7 wallets that have over 10 billion PLS in them. There's one player right now, F898, something like that. He is just a few grand short. He's going to be the first USDL millionaire. He's almost minted 1 million USDL himself. One player. If you look at what Liquidity's done, if this thing keeps moving up and Pulse keeps doing these things and more people keep building DeFi and more people keep using the DeFi, like these things will get out of hand. Like when we look at the participation, like this ecosystem is ready to have buoyancy and keep moving up. And like there could easily be 100 million USDL minted. There could be hundreds of million in TVL in these things. Like these things coming from the beginning, sometimes we forget what's normal to our ecosystem. What's normal in our ecosystem is what front end, how many front ends, knowing what a front end is, understanding bridges, talking about 15-year time frames, operating on 2 chains. Like this stuff takes a lot of time to do some of the things we're doing. And so when this thing keeps moving and we see really positive, when we see price move up, like that TVL is Pulse. When Pulse moves up, that TVL keeps going up and the opportunity to do more things in the system keep going up. And so when the next guy goes and mints another 1 million USDL, there's another 1 million USDL, and that stuff goes out to loan holders. And then when that thing moves around and some player goes and wants to move a couple million across and he wants to go cash USDL some way and he pushes the price of USDL down a couple pennies, you're going to see that thing redeemed and you're going to see that go to loan holders and you're going to see someone cash that stuff in. There's all these different market forces that come in, and this stuff will get huge. Like what we're looking at when you talk about participation is nasty. Like it has already got more users than what was on Ethereum in years. Like we have more participation. The only thing that needs to come is just time, and we'll see it, man. Like the yield from these things can be huge. These TVL numbers can get huge. Like this thing can go and be, because of what PulseChain is and because of how the users are and because of what the price can do, like these things can get out of hand.
It feels kind of like a money glitch, in a good way. It's just like,
right.
In the olden days, if you wanted to get money into crypto, you had to like ask permission from your bank and your centralized exchange and your KYC, and you had to not get ripped off by the exchange itself. And then you never took custody anyway because people weren't teaching that. And so for people, to see what this system could be capable of in the future, I think is going to be really exciting. And but see, we brought ChrispyMan in here to ask the hardest questions of all. And
big guns.
I'm not sure exactly what the questions are, but
when it's going to be on HEX.
Yeah. Hey, one point that you made, well, I have 2 questions maybe, but one point you made is pretty accurate. When people move away from one thing to another, it does change the dynamics in the system. And we've seen that with HEX, right? Mm-hmm. Now I'm over there focused on HEX and still focused on HEX and getting as much of the reward percentage as possible. But, it does occur to me that—
Get out of here, Maxie. Get out of here.
the 40%, right? And
Watch
so-
your mouth, Toby.
my 40% on or 38% on PulseChain, right? Might not be there if more money was floating into HEX for TShares, right? I don't know if that's good or bad, really, to tell you the truth, right? I mean, it's so complicated, calculation. But I'm just noting, I agree with you that things move around based on people's interest.
Well, the HEX thing, an opportunity if people want to use DeFi things. Again, I love to highlight how you don't just have to come level out. Like you can be on Pulse and be happy that there's things moving around. You can be a HEX player and be like, cool, there's more stuff on the chain. Bigger the chain gets, the bigger PHEX is probably going to get, right? Like activity breeds activity. We want all these users. We want people doing interesting things. With something like HEX, again, depending on how people want to like play certain things, you can mint USDL and to be doing rolling HEX stakes with your pulse back. Just keep the collateral high, and that's one of those ways you can sit here. There's a variety of ways you can get into this. Now, I'm really careful about some of those things because you get into some user experience about, hey, I'm spinning a lot of plates, so we try to keep it just. It does X, it does Y, it works this way, it works that way. But there's a lot of ways if you have a pulse back, but you're like, HEX is my baby, HEX is what brought me here. This is what I'm doing. Like there's a lot of ways to use the system to be taking advantage of it in some small ways, to be doing positive things with HEX.
Oh, sure. Hey, listen, I have to wear multiple hats, right? Didn't choose this, but this is what I got to do, right? Why do I say that? Because I'm in Pulse, I'm in Pulse X, right? For HEX to survive, Pulse has to survive, right? That's my feeling. Anyways, I mean, somebody might have an argument about ETH, right? What do you say to the people who did sacrifice and, they're not going to do anything more? I did sacrifice for liquid loans, a very small amount, right? Overall, I do that with a lot of things. I mean, not everything, but I got a spread. But are the people going to make it who just did a sack and they got their loan? Well, I mean, what should they expect? And they're not button pushers, right? There's some people out there, they just got their loan. That's it. I mean, it's coming someday, or they got it. And maybe they go stake it, right?
Are people down on compared to the rate? Because there's not a price of a sacrifice because sacrifices don't have any expectations. However, I'm interested, and also I just make a point in general. Whenever I hear somebody say sacrifice price, going forward, I would correct them because that's not what it is. There is no such thing. But if we compare it to the rate, which is like I think still something that people want to do, how we looking?
So one, again, you have to look at how people locked up, volume bonuses. That rate is pretty variable.
72% is locked and earning rewards. Is that correct? Which is also the same amount as user controlled HEX, apparently, which I find particularly interesting. So if you take out the OA, or if you take out the OA supply that's liquid, then user controlled HEX coins were, I think for a long period, time locked, 75% of users' coins were time locked. So anyway, I wanted to point that out too, but go ahead.
But just loosely referring to the chart in general. So one, the yields are very strong. And again, they get strong, like with redemptions, those things have only been on a few days. And because the USDL has been so strong, we haven't really seen it dip. Now it's dipped a few times. You're starting to see that. So there's extra yield coming from there. The PLS price is, I think most of us would agree, is artificially, for a lot of reasons, depressed and not where most of us would have thought it would be at this standpoint. As that goes up, there's more USDL to be redeemed. There's more issuance to be gained. And the loan token gets higher and higher yields from those things. And I think that we're seeing the ecosystem in general, like because of where we're at with time frames and all these things, people just need liquidity, right? So I think that when you see yield, those things tend to be valuable. When you see the level of participation we have, and there's a low price, that seems like opportunity. Now, I don't make forward-facing price calls. I've never done that on anything that I've owned or not owned in general, but you can't program a chart, but you can have a lot of yield. You can have a lot of participation. You can have market fit, and charts and LP go where they go.
Do you know what the HEX price was when the sacrifice was open?
I do not. So the SAC only took in stables, but I'm not sure. I'd have to go look. So I can't remember what it was last week.
Well, I
Let me
think
ask
it's
you
I think
Well,
it's
yeah, because
interesting.
Maddie, I think I know.
Yeah.
I think I know where you're
Yeah.
going with that. I think that's along the same lines of what we talked about last week with as far as like capital retention, right? So like if you sacrificed HEX, like I was making actually this is, I don't know if I talked about it on here or not. Maybe it was on What the Heck with Papa and DJ. But the thing is that you know, I was making fun of Hexo because he was like, "Oh, we're below the SAC rate. We're below the SAC rate. What a good bargain!" And I'm like, you know what? We are and we aren't. You know, because if you followed Richard Hart and like kind of like read between the lines or literally read the lines of, you know, there's a pretty good chance if you sack HEX for this that it's going to go to a wallet that's never ever going to sell it. So you're effectively taking it off the market. So thereby you're kind of pumping the remainder of your bags, right? I mean, that was kind of the general thought, you know, in the community at the time of the sack. So if you sacked back then. And HEX for
people
the
were making that up, but I don't think Richard was hinting.
He might have not said it specifically, but it's like it was.
He said no expectations.
Well, of course, but I mean, there was that hint of kind of like, you know, it would make sense if like you got, you know, if a thing was going to end up never being sold, it would make sense to get rid of that thing, you know. And it's like, so he did one of those, which is fine. And you know, I don't think that, you know, puts him in any negative light necessarily, and ultimately it was a good thing, right? Because it's like if you sacked at like 12 or 14 cents or whatever it was during the Pulse sack, instead of holding that bag to where we are now, you're literally like at a 10x, right? Like with the current price of where Pulse is, you know, if you consider the copy, right? It's like if you got the copy of the HEX and the whole deal, you do the math on it, it's like a 10x because you sacrificed HEX at that time. So you'd have to be fair, you would have to do that same thing for liquid loans and your other stuff. So even me, when I was kvetching about, you know, my Mentra bag going down, it's like I sacrificed a tiny amount from Mentra. I like Gerardo, didn't really know a lot about it. I don't own any NFTs unless I was given them. I don't really know what they are, but I like the idea behind it and I liked him. So I sacrificed a little and it was down, but then I went back and I'm like, well, wait a minute. You know, it's like if I had sacrificed HEX for that, then I actually would have retained value. I didn't. I did USDL.
Yeah, for clarity, we should mention though that liquid loans did not accept HEX as
oh, they didn't. Okay, gotcha.
On the staples.
But well, if people liquidated some HEX, you know, hey, that's their prerogative. At that point, they effectively took profit at a good spot.
Yeah, well, you know, you can look at it that way, right? It was in retrospect, it might have been an okay spot. They still would have missed copy, right? But yeah,
gotcha. Fair.
Hey, the other question I have for you, WaLLrus.
That's an important point, Crispy. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yes.
Oh, you're welcome, Matt. I think you knew that. I wanted to ask WaLLrus this. You started talking about the chain and the usage. You know, it occurs to me, much like you, right? You were just describing this. I don't know if you want to talk any more about it or would you have more information. It occurs to me that there isn't much going on in ETH. I mean, I know we're out there. We probably took the HEX Pulsekins, we probably took an awful lot of economic action out of that. And we seem to be hopping pretty good on PulseChain, maybe some other L1s, but I mean, do you have any sense of what's going on? Because I'm over there looking, I had to go claim something and get a stake done that I had. And I was over there looking at it and, you know, literally, I can't transact. I mean, I could, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to transact $25 for, you know, 15 or $20 worth of tokens. And that was different a few years ago, right? Because it wasn't that high in terms of gas price. But it seems to me like it is a rich person's game now on ETH. And does that mean that people aren't there? I mean, what is your sense of that?
There's actually a handful of things that I like to highlight there. One is, at the time, I think we just thought they were cool, and now we need to take them seriously for the tools they are. But what Maxi and Alex and all those guys have built, they weren't just cool new toys. They were trying to solve a problem, right? They were trying to optimize around gas efficiencies. So one, I think those tools should get more love and be more thought of like, hey, cool. Yeah, I know we have new prices. And they were kind of like, I think they had a honeymoon period, but I think we were just like, man, look, cool stuff on top of HEX. And then we went on and there's been PulseChain and, you know, we're talking about and now like we've kind of I don't think they've actually got enough time. Like the HSI stake, guys, that shit is incredible. Like Alex, I don't think even Alex really realizes how cool that thing is yet. And I say that knowing how damn smart that wizard is. Like, we have things that are designed to optimize and keep using hex on a chain that's not gas efficient, right? So like, I almost think we need to go back through those things again. Like, hey, how can we still use the one that we brought to the dance? Like, there are more tools now, right? Like, there were things built on top for a reason. Those are smart guys who built cool stuff. It revolves around hex, the thing that we say is valuable, that we like to have, that we built another chain for in some capacity. Like, yeah, let's go use the cool tools, right? Like, the same things I say about LL on top of Pulse. Like, let's go use those cool tools. The other is, if you look, the people on ETH solved their problem a different way. And a lot of the volume that you're talking about is on Arbitrum and on hyper centralized L2s. And they have their own issues there. But that's the only reason a lot of people can afford, because they basically gave up their DeFi privileges and their DeFi call and wanted to go do L2 things. And there's a variety of issues and some pros and cons that go along with those. And then I think one of the last ones is, to your point, yeah, I mean, it's a rich man's chain. It's the reason that, BSC kind of has its narrative and its use case. And I think that this is some of the things that we're still building out with PulseChain. Is I think we have our hex first DeFi narrative. And I mean, I think the narratives that that hex players and RH and early Pulse players is the reason that I'm hiding. Like, look at our participation, right? Like, charts are going to go where they go. USDL is cool. Yield's cool. All that stuff is super awesome. We have more users. There are more people actually using the protocol, right?
That's what I'm getting to. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to point out. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that you're right. I think that Ethereum is scaling in a way that is not beneficial for most users. I think that in a lot of ways it's hijacked. I think the more you look at the way the MEV issues with flash bots, we can really go on a bit of a torrent there on negative on ETH. One of the things that I'm pro about when it comes to PulseChain being a fork of ETH is it's almost like getting your vote back. Do we get the ETH upgrades if we want them? So I think that we have an ability to do our own things as well as piggyback off of the things that they build that we want. So I think to your point, yes, there's less usage on less people doing smaller things are capable of transacting on the fees, including yourself, who's somebody who's very pro crypto and been in the space. So I think that they're growing in wrong ways. I think that the issues that you're highlighting are real. And then the last one again is, we did have really smart people build some really cool tools that'll still allow us to do cool things with the OG hex.
Oh, yeah.
And they need to be used.
Well, I would tell you this. My observation is even Communis, also a derivative of Maxi, Deci, Hedron Icosa. Yes, we're pretty depressed right now, but this community is still going taking care of business, right? That's happening. Now, that doesn't mean they're spending money on gas when it doesn't make sense, but I do, because I'm looking at the numbers, I see the participation, right? People are out there doing stuff. They're still collecting what they have if they can, and that's really what the fork was for, anyways, right? It got that fork for that reason. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to watch how this all plays out, and what, if anything, the Ethereum folks do to fix the gas problem, or do they even consider it a problem? There is something in business called barrier to entry, and you know what, barrier to entry, kind of think of this way: what would the world look like if millions of people all over the world were trading a penny a stock, a fraction of a stock? How would everything look? It would be like totally jumbled up, kind of like what we look at. We look at the data on crypto. But there's a reason, and I don't know if it's valid because it also limits people's ability, but they certainly, there was a time when you had barriers to entry, right? You couldn't even you couldn't just go buy stock, right? And and if you were going to go buy it, you had to buy several $1,000s worth because it didn't make sense because of the fees.
Yes.
And
$50 a trade.
Yeah, $100 at one point, $50 a trade, whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's, in a way, Ethereum has kind of regressed, because when we started, it was a couple pennies, right? Well, less than pennies. So it wasn't even a penny lots of times.
Correct.
And so now it feels like a regression. But I almost wonder if it's on purpose, because again, barriers to entry. Maybe not forever, but it's certainly a barrier to entry.
Well,
to take control of that entire network by making fees expensive, because only those who can afford it can participate.
I have a theory about this. Like, if you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, both successful projects in crypto, at least, they both have the same problem where the fees went too high, but then it benefits the people who are running everything. And so and that's not what they set out to do. That's not what the mission, you've got the founder of Bitcoin and the founder of Ethereum, both like on record, Vitalik in video form, Satoshi, writing the white paper and all over these boards. And they're both saying the same thing. Don't use anything that has dollar fees. Like, this is a peer-to-peer system to exchange value. And so it wasn't a store of value. It was a mechanism of exchange. And so, like peer-to-peer money got corrupted by the game theory that in order to validate and trust the system, you have to pay out in the token itself. You have to inflate. You have to do all these things. And, so it's just so interesting to me that we have that we're solving problems. And I'm curious what you guys will think about that idea. So if we put ourselves in the shoes of the people who are running Ethereum now, they bought Ethereum for 30 cents each, right? They had a year to do it. They had an initial offering where they sacrificed Bitcoin or whatever. And now, what are they doing to reduce fees? Proto-dank sharding that I've been hearing about for 7 years. Like, what?
Well,
right?
It's a goofy one. I brought this up a handful of times, but it's one example I like to highlight. And it's one of my favorite things Arch ever said, that you can be price wrong and technically right, or the inverse, right? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I thought about with like Bitcoin Cash. I think Bitcoin Cash was technically right. Now there's rabbit hole after rabbit hole to go on from there, but Roger Ver and those guys were like, hey, this thing's supposed to be peer-to-peer money. Let's try to make it that. Like, okay, how many of you guys are running nodes anyway? All right, well, the barrier to entry, to use Crispy's point, doesn't change that much from one nerd to one slightly more nerd. It's only nerds running nodes in the first place, right? Like, that's the world we're in the first place. So those guys, again, they were priced wrong, clearly, right? Like, they lost the market idea on price. But I think their ideas and what they were trying to do was, this thing was supposed to be peer-to-peer cash. Let's try to make it that.
Well, I can tell you, since I've been to the future in my DeLorean, I can tell you how it all works out if you'd like. It turns out that the answer to all of this was to have the same set of users hold all the different ideas, all the different technologies in discrete tickers. So, Bitcoin cannot be a store of value and a mechanism of exchange, just like Ethereum can't. But if you have, if you have PulseChain that can be the cheap transaction layer that sucks in billions of users with like a killer app, like, I don't know, a stablecoin that's actually stable, but it's not held in a bank or whatever you want it to be. Maybe it's HEX. Maybe HEX beats you to the punch. And like, that's the store of value. You have your TShares. And I mean, I really think PLSX is like one of the top technologies ever to exist because, they forgot to plug in the two pieces when they made Uniswap, and they duct taped on a token that was unrelated to the fees that are being generated. So they give the fees to like a centralized group of people, and then they sold a token that people thought would be related to that, but they're not getting paid. PulseX buys and burns in a way that there's nobody in the middle.
Yeah, I think
so that could be a store of value too.
Absolutely. And it's like, and we've talked about this before. It's like, we've got all the little pieces, right? We've got the HEX being, I think, the best store of value ever created. It's a better Bitcoin. It's like, you earn yield by locking it up. You end up with more of it over time. You got your layer one now with Pulse, PulseX, I think, is, I don't know if it's by design or just by happenstance or timing or whatever. There's some good competition coming up around it as far as other DEXs go. And maybe, things will happen with the PulseX team that's going to come and just blow the doors off and make it kind of like head and shoulders above everyone else in time. We will see, but I think
anybody could build anybody
Yes.
can build in a way that would kick ass. And
Yeah, it's great.
so,
It's right. That's DeFi, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. But I think the whole idea of like barriers to entry, and with all due respect, Crispy, I feel, and I've done it myself, you know, kind of focusing on those things, I feel like it's a little bit of cope, because the fact of the matter is like, if the green candles were here, just like when we were all rushing to, like, you know, if you were early and you were excited about what was going on with Hex launching and you wanted to get your free Bitcoin claim, you figured out how to use that weird little exe file to like have that, like, whatever that wallet was. What was it, like, I can't remember what it was called now, but like I had to figure out, like, how do I get my Bitcoin off of Coinbase so I hold it, like I have the keys to it, so then I can use it to free claim my Hex, right? You figured it out. Like, if you want something bad enough, you figure it out.
that was a good game theory design. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah. So it's like, I think it's the same thing. It's like right now, there's not that incentive for people to apply themselves because the market's down and they don't see the green candles yet. But remarkably, I think those same group of people that may be under their breath or maybe more vocally are being like barrier of entry, it's like they're not going to be so worried about it, and they're going to buckle down and learn when they see the green candles and they feel like they're getting left behind, right? They're going to learn, and they're going to get on the ship right before it takes off, or not, and that's okay.
I think
too, you know?
I think both points are valid, that like, you know, people having an attitude that they can do it, and that you can show others how and stuff, like that's really important to remember. And then also this idea that $100 fees, that's like going backwards in a time machine to when finance sucked way worse than it does now. So if we can figure out how to incentivize people to, you know, come and play the game with us and everything, I think that, you know, but a big part of it too, I'm very hopeful, and I'm coping very hard, like with my optimism for crypto to do really well, and for stablecoins to be a piece of the puzzle of people being able to say, oh, you mean I don't have to choose just like something that could go down 99% or could go up 1,000%, like, so yeah. Crispy, back to you. Was that related to your point?
Can we change his name to Captain Cope? We do Captain Cope at HexFire. I'm just teasing. Go ahead.
I don't think I'm coping at all.
No, I'm just teasing you, dude.
I think I'm going after factual stuff. That
I think it's true. I think it's true. I think it's all perspective, right? Because it's like, is it a barrier to entry? Yeah. Is it more complicated, difficult? Yeah. Are people less likely to do it if the market is continuing to go down? Sure.
Well, I think you're
rewards from doing it, right?
Yeah, I think you're conflating some additional stuff on.
Let's go, bro. Let's go.
I was thinking. Yeah, we'll go to the mat. I just meant in terms of the gas price.
Show me your spreadsheet, Crispy. I want analytics. I want numbers. Let's see what you got.
I got null values for you, man.
It's a data showdown.
I got a couple null values for you right here, Tobiwan.
Yeah. Across the head. It's but yeah, I think I'm just kind of thinking about the opportunity that PulseChain has, because I do think the speculation continues, right? People enjoying things, and I just didn't feel, and I didn't feel it as real until I was doing some more nosing around, that it really feels like a ghost town. Ethereum, that is.
Ethereum
in general, outside of our community. And that made me think about some things. That's kind of like what WaLLrus was talking about, the other L2s or the other L1s, and some of the L2s out there is probably where people have gone. I think the argument's still valid, Toby, that what you made, which is that when the green candles come, people will come with them. Of course they will. I mean, that's the only thing anybody cares about. I mean, okay, don't get offended, everybody. Okay, maybe you really do.
I'm offended.
You care about a lot of other stuff. But anytime anybody's talking about crypto, it's because crypto went up, and they saw green candles, and somebody talked about the price being high. That's why anybody contacts me about it. They don't contact me because they're like, "Hey, I really want to know more about how the detailed claiming."
I want to learn the tech.
And I get that, right? I'm one of the people that actually likes this stuff, right? Like, we sit around, we actually do get into it, we get excited about goofy stuff. But one of the things that I highlight about, look, the learning of some of these things that go on is, look at that cat who just dropped 9 billion. I haven't went and checked, but most of the time you see that, not only did they just sell, but they do this, like when they were on ETH, they did the swap inside of MetaMask. Like, if that guy just knew what a DEX aggregator was, how much more would he been able to extract today? Just today.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he moved
People
his
are
money
crazy,
up
man.
50%.
People are
Like,
crazy.
Yep. It's like people, that person
if
that
you
ended
went
like
through
they ended a stake 1 day early and missed out on their whole big payday. Like, I don't know if you guys saw that recently too. It was just,
that one was
I heard it,
heartbreaking.
yeah.
That was sad. I didn't feel good about
It was like,
that.
what the hell, people? It's like, are you
but like that,
even?
that guy today, like, even if you did care and you wanted to be out, I mean, I'm not joking. He probably cost what, 40 grand, 35 grand?
Yeah.
Because he didn't understand
Yeah.
execution?
Yeah. I would say it was probably just an accident. The person was a very experienced staker. They did 20, 30 of them successfully. So it was just probably a mistake.
Crispy, did you hit the wrong button? Are you copying to this right now? That was you,
sure.
and you just hit the wrong button.
I haven't done that on purpose, but yeah, I thought maybe it was on purpose.
People
Hey,
can make
speaking of-
mistakes.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It could have
Yes.
been whale games too. It could have been trying to shake people out. Like, crazy shit like that's happened. And I mean,
Oh, it does. It does.
That's a good point.
And don't forget, there are some people who truly are fearful of what's going to happen on EX, whatever the reasons, right? And and now we see some of the same stuff happen on PulseChain. But I mean, they're so fearful about what's going to happen, they figure it's better to get out while they can with what they have. Of course, if in the kind of methodology that I put forth that I picked up from Richard Hart, I have a ladder, so I always have HEX available. And not always, but I'm getting there to where it's always available. And then, so that I don't have that kind of thing. I have a different question though on liquid loans.
I just want to point out,
remind me about that.
As we're like trying to understand over many years, like what the wallet behaviors are, it could have also been somebody, if they had like passed away and left their crypto to a family member, the family member may have like, sold on market in a less sophisticated way or something. So
Sure.
just because like we've seen a certain behavior on a certain wallet before, now that we're 4 years into this, or 5 or whatever, if you were learning about Richard's first project or something, I think some of the people are changing.
yeah.
Well, at the end
and
of
I
the
mean,
day, it's all DeFi. We don't know.
One
True.
infamously, it's like, and this is public information, so I'm certainly not, if anything, I defended him for doing what he did. But Deb Kyle, like, it was public knowledge that he dumped EHEX. I think it was on the way toward the all-time high, and it was like $1 million, a couple $1 million, and people freaked out because he did it as a market order. And he confessed that was him that did it. And then the reason is that he had an opportunity in his personal life to really change his life in a significant way as far as his job and family situation. But he needed that money, and he couldn't take the chance that his limit order wouldn't fill. So he understood, that he could have done a limit order. But we've all done this. You set a limit order and then the price runs the opposite way, and you're like, oh fuck. It's like, I could, and then you chase it, and then you end up actually, effectively having more slippage by filling at a different price than having just market dumped, right? So, and then when you look at it, it's like, if you actually, because like it's like a whole drama, one of the past history, chronicles of the drama in the HEX community, but like Rackham Reichel like ousted him for it and was a total jerk about it. And I came to his defense. I'm like, dude, look at the chart. It was like a 15-minute candle. It wicked down like this tiny amount, and it was bought back up within 15 minutes. So fuck off. Like, what did he do? He didn't wreck the chart. It just happened. So he had his reasons, right? It's like, so, I mean, you never know. You never know when you see a big move like that, what the reasons were. They're nervous. They got a reason. They got to be in the cash quickly. You don't know, but it's, to me, what's always reaffirming is how quickly things recover. Like how many people at these, I mean, we've been beaten down for a minute, right? And like, there's still that many people ready to come in and buy up those dips. To me, that's bullish as fuck.
We have 220 people watching now, thousands on the replay. Go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button, because I think this conversation has been particularly good. And we normally go to 2 hours and 20 minutes on the show. So I'm wondering, I know ChrispyMan has another question in mind. And then I also wanted to see just what your analysis is of where we're at in the, in the market cycle, where we're at with the prices of Pulse and PulseX and HEX. As I was driving to Florida, I did a 14-hour Twitter Spaces and got to ask all these like super intelligent people. For real.
Damn,
Yeah.
I didn't
Go
know
look
you
at
went
my
that
Twitter.
long. Crazy.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And I just got to learn and teach all these really awesome things about crypto and DeFi. And I was just sitting there asking questions for hours, getting like really good answers. And even though there was only like 20 people there at a time, which is the lowest it's ever been, it was some of the most quality people. And
Nice.
I learned things that I didn't know, that I really, really, really didn't know. And there were insights that I found into like people's market psychology. Like there's this whole group of people that I had never heard from that's out there, you know, in the extended community. Some guys came in with like these super demoralized voices, but when I was stories, but when I was asking them what they're going to do, they're holding, like they already know everything there is to know, and they're holding. And in my opinion, that's a really bullish situation when you get down to the point where, you know, there was so much of a contrast between like what the person, how they sounded, how they were presenting, like their attitudes and beliefs. Like they think it's never going to pump. They think, but they're not going to sell. And it doesn't matter if it goes down more or up more, because they didn't sell on a 3.5x. For Pulse when it launched. They didn't sell HEX when HEX did a 600% in this past year from its low. Then HEX has done all these other cycles that I wasn't aware of because I'm not a trader, but apparently HEX like has gone up a bunch of times recently and back down. And so like there was 14 hours of stuff that I learned, and I ended up writing the longest Twitter post I've ever done, and it seemed like people got something out of it. So
yeah, I read the post. I just wasn't able to join you for the space, but that was great, I thought.
But Crispy, like, would it be better to go back to you for your question that you had before, and then go to like our predictions and observations of the market?
Yeah, just a real quick one from WaLLrus. So you guys might have covered this while I was away a little bit, but we did see a number of liquidations in the first few days, and afterwards. Have you guys done any looking into why that happened? Why, you know, is it because I was wondering whether some people seeded the process a little bit so that there would be liquidations, but pretty much everybody I know knows about the 500%, the 1,000%. So what was with the 110%?
So there's actually been, that was one thing that we touched on. There's actually been a number of those liquidations have actually reopened vaults. So I haven't went and like investigated them individually. If you look, there was a gap there. I would imagine that it was mostly, they were just trying to go max effort on a few of these things. So I think that there's a handful of people who just pure and simple did not know what they were doing and went and like max minted. And I have no idea why. There's a handful of people that when the USDL was at a premium, were just willing to play aggressive and were taking the yield and just knew what they were doing. And then they've even reopened vaults. So if you look on our analytics, the liquidations, you'll actually see them trend down at certain times. And it's because a wallet will either show as open, closed, or liquidated. And if a liquidated or closed wallet reopens, it'll subtract them and add them back. So I'm not really sure, like, because most of it happened when there was not much negative price movement. If you look at the two big actual dips, there were very few liquidations. Like the candle that happened today, 0. There's only been like one liquidation in the last 4 or 5 days.
I heard you say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So not really sure. That, again, most of those all happened in that short window there. I think it was a mix of things. Looking at it, I think there's a handful of smart players in there doing smart things and taking advantage of the ARBs. There were a handful of smaller wallets that I do not know what they were doing. And then I think there were a handful that were just being too aggressive. So I think it's a mix across. But no, no insider baseball or anything that the team was doing or anything like that I know of.
No, I didn't know if it was, I wasn't really thinking it was you guys doing it like as a protocol. I was just curious because it seemed strange. That's all. Okay.
It did seem odd that, and it kind of has a delay. It looked, I'll have to go look again. It looked like day 3 and 4. I mean, there was some negative price movement, but why people that early were being that aggressive with the vault sizes, it did seem odd to me as well.
I was hoping for stupider people because I was in the stability pool.
Oh man, one of my
I was like,
favorite
where's
guys.
my liquidation gains? It's like, where am I going to benefit from the dumbness?
There's a wallet that this guy, man, he is spiking cortisol all across the world. Oh my God. There's a guy, I think it's like B9FA or something like that. I think it starts with a B.
Yeah.
But he had like 12 or 16 billion pulse. And if you go and look, he has like 6,000 wrapped ETH. And he's got some economic energy there to throw around. And he kept getting down to like 18. And then everyone on Twitter would be like, oh my God, this is it. We told you guys, this is it. We knew it. It's going to blow up. The price is going to get wrecked. He just adjusts his collateral. And he probably did it like 5 or 6 times. And he got into like the high teens. And every time I just saw the panic, it cracked me up. So whoever that player is, 1, you're a legend. And 2,
tip of the hat, right?
Yeah, tip of the hat. I needed that, man. It's pretty good stuff, honestly.
That was entertaining. No, I can handle that kind of drama. I like that kind of Twitter drama. That
was one of the things I said when we were live, that we'd have better things to hate about, right? Like, if you want to hate about that stuff, that's at least fun and engaging. We can at least go through it, right? Like, that's more fun than yelling at Dev Kyle, right?
Yeah, right.
But that's one of the things. Again, like, there's just nothing but space and energy. This is something that I've highlighted a little bit, because sometimes you get this, like, a conservative player will ask you, like, it's, hey, I don't really look at my vault that much. I'm not that familiar with this, but like, if I go to like 108, 112% collateral, I could get liquidated. It's like, why would you do that? Like, you just told me that you're not aggressive. Like, don't do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that. So one of the things is, again, I always clarify again, like, if you're uncomfortable with these things, like, if you have to ask, higher collateral. If you want to look at it less, higher collateral. If you want to be safe, higher, like, it's just all the way up to, like, you know what, don't do this. And I say that stuff all the time. Like, you don't have to go chase this stuff. You can buy the USDL if you just want to go to stability pool. You don't even have to mint it. Just take the absolute minimum risk that you're comfortable with. One of the things about crypto is that the stuff goes up so much, you don't have to be that aggressive, right? Like, there's a handful of things about that. Like, you don't need to do certain things if you're just not comfortable and don't understand the process on those. Like, just do the simple stuff, man. Like, take it slow. Take it.
Yeah,
slow.
I've yet to mint any. It's like for the USDL that I'm using in the pool, it's like I helped. I wasn't at $1.12, but it was over $1. So I was definitely in that group of people that were helping push that price up, because it's like, I mean, to me, it was so obvious, because I was talking to a friend and I'm like, man, why is the price up so much above $1? Like, when people are racing to get that yield, it's like they see how good the yield is on the staking for the stability pool. So it's like they want to have USDL to stake, just like me. Like, I just did it, bro. It's like I'm part of the problem, I guess. And then it balanced out, right? Which was expected. And the yield that I earned is more than made up for it already.
And they want to participate in changing the world to the point of not relying on banks anymore. Do you think the price of PHEX is not related to the price of the amount of stables that are sitting in liquidity pools attached to that? Because if you don't understand that, then we've done a really bad job of explaining DeFi to you. Like, even that's why this relates even to HEX, is because if you can't cash out, your money isn't real. And HEX has this really cool game theory behind it, where it incentivizes you to use it as a store of value. And that's like, will seem so obvious to people in the future. It's like, I already talked, did I talk about this last week? But like, I'm going to say it again. Like, the Highest of Stakes documentary is going to be a cult classic. And what that means is it's like not as popular when it comes out, and then it becomes extremely popular later on. Imagine watching the movie. I don't know if I'm breaking up because of my signal, but imagine watching the movie and the price of HEX is 100x higher. Like, I've done that. I've watched the movie 8 or 9 times, and maybe it was the 8th time or something. You probably don't have to watch it 8 times. Just like watch it a second time and think to yourself how each of the scenes is going to hit when all the information is flipped. It's like, HEX isn't down 98%. But people had all that opportunity, and they're going to look back. This is my prediction. We do make game theory predictions on the show. My prediction is people are going to look back and they're going to say, wait a second. It was publicly known that somebody who used to work at the Fed, who is currently a professor at DePaul University in Chicago, who teaches finance, was the skeptic in the movie, and then he switched and became fascinated and obsessed with HEX, going on tons of public streams. And that didn't wake people up to not sell it. That didn't wake people up to start looking into it, trying to understand why it has so much value.
And
I
integrating
think,
it into his curriculum in his crypto course, you know, I mean, even all the way down the chain to like Hedron, I think, like in some of his curriculum. So it's like, yeah, I think it's going to definitely be a cult classic. I think it's going to be one of those deals where it's like, if you're in crypto at any level and you haven't watched that movie, people are gonna be like, what do you mean you haven't seen that movie? Like everybody in crypto is going to see that movie, you know? And I mean, and the impacts of that, in my opinion, price or, you know, positive or not, as far as like really getting people to understand, you know, or at least get their appetite wet for like DeFi and like to want to learn more and really participate in it. Because it's like my whole deal is like, I was kind of shocked when I said this out loud the other day to a friend of mine. I'm like, you know what, actually, I have yet to even withdraw a single dollar from when I started in crypto. Like I have not taken anything off the table. It's just been like this vomiting of all my wealth like into more crypto stuff, right? And it's like, there was one time I did it just because I was early on where it's like, I literally was like, is this real money? It's like, this is kind of bonkers. I want to see that money back in my checking account just for like a minute. So I literally like withdrew it, like sent it to like, you know, one of the major centralized exchanges, Coinbase. And then I put it in my bank and then I sent it right back in because it's like, I'm not going to let that sit in my bank. It's like, it's doing better over in crypto, right? And then, you know, here we are, however many years later. But it's like, you know, if you're looking for like just, I mean, yeah, do I want to like have a billionaire bionic spine and like be able to like, you know, jetpack around everywhere at some point because I'm so retardedly wealthy? Sure. But the other part of it is I'm not just looking at like how to exit to fiat. I really genuinely believe in a future where we are not so, you know, at the whim of banks. I mean, it's just been such a disgusting process, especially having been in crypto for this long now, where I literally don't do, I mean, I do a little bit of banking just because I have to, with, you know, a loan that I have with that particular institution that I can't wait to just pay off and stick their noses in. But the reason that I had to switch all my shit over to another bank is that they basically would not allow me to do deposits to Coinbase or Gemini anymore. I couldn't do any. And it's like, I'd done like a lot, bros, like a lot over the last 6-7 years. And all of a sudden they're just like, yep, nope, can't do it. Wouldn't give me any reasons behind it. Nothing, like no explanations. And it's just, it's draconian. It's disgusting.
Bank Secrecy Act.
Yeah. Fuck banks, dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
like, the sooner I don't have to ever deal with a bank again, the better my life will be. And I think we'll have less wars. I mean, we could go on and on. I might need a cup of coffee if we're going to go down all that, you know, but it's like, I think the world will genuinely be a better place if a DeFi really becomes like a thing, right? Like, and outside of just our little crypto bubble of nerds, like fantasizing about it. It's like, I think it's coming. I think it's happening. It's like, it's already happening around the world, right?
I think another piece of the puzzle, other than like, you know, having all the right DeFi mechanisms, I think it's really cool that Ethereum got EIP 1559 on September 15th, 2022, when we were in a bear market, because that's going to burn a lot of ETH going into this bull market. And you've never seen anything so popular and deflationary. What do you think is going to happen to HEX, which is more deflationary? That is HEX. The other thing I was going to say that's really bullish about it is just the fact that PLSX is tied in liquidity and in holders. Like the people who hold HEX, the people who hold PulseX and who hold Pulse, the majority of that, probably the vast majority, more than any other asset in the history of the world, the vast majority is people who were in HEX, because they made so many gains in HEX, then they had money. I had 200x more money to put in, and I still didn't have that much money to put in because I'm locked. So I'm locked for like 12.5 years on average, and I have yearly stakes coming out. But anyway, the point is that, yeah, it's like having two deflationary pressures on top of each other while ETH is sucking in money that, you know, is the gates are wider open between legacy and ETH, and then the gates are open between ETH and PLS. And so I really think that the amount of deflationary pressure that could occur on PulseX and on TShares is going to be nuts.
One of the quick notes before we move too far away from the movie and the cult classic is some of the stuff is just like, it'll be that, do you remember where you were? I mean, some of the stuff is just crazy. I mean, like how big some of these things get. Like we say million, billion, and trillion so many times in crypto. Sometimes we forget what that stuff really means, you know? Like there's a lot of just economic value and cool stuff that's rolling around, you know? A lot of this, I mean, you know, when we talk, you know, again, it was PulseChain and the ecosystem stuff is why I wanted to be forward facing in the first place, you know, and started doing some of the admin stuff. Like, I mean, Toby, I literally remember the first time I met you in Vegas. I remember the time we walked up and I shook your hand. I mean, I was like, man, that's so cool, man. Talk to this guy, you know, we'd probably, however many knows. I remember walking through, talking about random stuff and walking through the grocery store and I remember when Maddie, you asked me to speak at the HEX conference in person. I remember we came up, we saw each other in Austin, you know, and went and did Steve Aoki stuff. You know, so many people in the space. Like, I'm like, oh, I remember I got a chance, you know, RG3 got a chance to go shake his hand and Ben KG and just so many on. I remember when Jay Money from How to Pulse came down and, you know, we acted like we were stepbrothers, man. It was the nerdiest, two grown men, man. We looked ridiculous. Like, oh my God, just seemed ridiculous, you know? And we just get a chance to, to be around and, you know, participate in these things. It is insane, you know? So, you know, that's one of the things I think that goes into the sentiment around DeFi is, you know, without getting like too far down the rabbit hole is like people feel powerless about so much stuff. They just don't feel like they have an impact. They don't feel like they have a say. They don't feel like they have a vote, you know, and this stuff gets all the way into like relationships and like very small things anymore where people just, they just don't feel like they have an impact. But, you know, the responsibility in DeFi like is huge. Like if whatever happens to those funds and those wallets, like that's me and my fault, good and bad. And like having that control and some autonomy, like is massive. So I think that's a huge part of crypto when it comes to the culture war. It's not just it's not just the push away from banks and negative things, but it's the pull back to some sovereignty and just being like, man, I don't care what happens. Whatever happens is my damn fault, like good and bad. And I think that stuff just does not get talked about enough. You know, whether, you know, we're kind of seeing that a bit in some positive and negative ways with things like Andrew Tate or, you know, some of the, you know, even like Texit and some like you see in all these different places. And I think in a lot of ways it just comes down to like, man, I'm a grown man. Just like I'll cut my grass or I won't. Kiss my ass. Like I don't care. Like I'm just gonna do whatever it is I want to do. You know, at some level. And so sovereignty is really powerful. Like just
I think like having agency and feeling like you can trust your value in the future and your savings mechanism and like your society isn't robbing from you super bad. Like these are all things that lead, I think, to people's mental health in ways that like is not at all how people are characterizing mental health now as like, you know, you take an antidepressant or you don't type thing, or, you know, you're living in an environment that's incredibly stressful or a life that, you know, has a lot of things going wrong with it. But people do have trouble trusting each other these days more than ever. And I do think that it's subconsciously related to money. And so, you know, while that is yet to be proven, I think so far what I've observed, which is that's the most important emergent effect of people time locking or people having sovereignty, as you said, over their money, is that people all of a sudden can get their lives in order in ways that they couldn't before. Whether the price is going up or down, which is very interesting, as we see in HEX, you know, a massive engagement. And this is like undisputed that HEX must have not wrecked people as bad as the liquid price is suggesting, you know, because why aren't Bitcoiners watching Bitcoin podcasts that they've subscribed to anymore? You can see it. You can look at the number of views and the number of subscribers, and you can tell a story of how well people did or how well they were treated with that experiment on money. And so our experiment on money, like despite what it's being characterized as, I believe is probably the most successful so far. And I'm sure I'm biased, but you know, remind me of this in 90 days or something. You know?
Yeah, right. Well, it's like, I mean, it goes back to community, you know, because it's like, I think I don't think anyone's going to dispute the fact that HEX has one of the greatest cohesive communities in all of crypto. And it's like, Bitcoin wouldn't be where it is today had it not been for those people that we like to kind of like point fingers at now, as far as like these crazy Bitcoin maxis, right? They're the ones that they were zealots, right? They were crazy about it. And it got it to where it got, but it's, like Richard had talked about with being at the top of the S curve, when the richest man in the world has bought your token, how much more upside have you got, right? And it's like, so now it's kind of it's gone from, a grassroots movement of people wanting, peer-to-peer currency to, what Bitcoin has become. And, and we talked about this a little bit before with Bitcoin Cash and those types of things. And, I think that the opportunities, I don't think it's necessarily bad to invest in Bitcoin. I think that there's a huge place for Bitcoin in the world as far as cryptocurrency adoption goes. But as far as, where the gains are, I mean, if you want it and you want to hope that you can get a 3x on this coming bull cycle, and invest in Bitcoin. If you want to be in something that was like Bitcoin was in 2011, and have hundreds of X's ahead of you, then, maybe you need to pay a little closer attention to the HEX community and see what's going on there and the opportunities that exist. And it's not all one thing either, which is really, I think, compelling and interesting and keeps people engaged. And to your point also, Maddie, about kind of hopelessness and depression with people in regard to finance, I think that that's been a problem, as old as time, where people have been concerned about their debts and not being able to have enough to sustain themselves as they got older, or what have you. But then you add in the element of like, the government, or frauds, basically just taking your pensions away, or, minting money into oblivion, where inflation has basically robbed you of what you've worked your whole life to save, to like give yourself some stability. It is horribly demoralizing, and it does, make people hopeless, right? And it's like, there's a dear friend of mine that, more or less thought I lost him to addiction. And one of the tools that I used, and actually talking to another friend of mine, Joe Hexobi, about this, having a staking ladder for that guy when he had no shoes, right? Like he was literally like trying to hustle me for money to send through Cash App. And it's like, bro, you got to get your shit together. But here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get a staking ladder together for you. You get your shit together, and you call me in a year. You get a year under your belt of like, and then we can talk again. Other than that, I'm sorry that you don't have shoes, and I'm sorry that you're at a gas station in Florida. Good fucking luck. I love you. Goodbye. And I'm happy to say that guy has this pimped out bachelor pad, and he's like kiteboarding, dating all kinds of hot women. His life is better than ever. He's crushing it, right? And it's like, and what's happened over the last 2.5 years? We have been down. So it wasn't as much about the gains. It was about the hope, right? It's like he had something, he saw delayed gratification in the works. And he saw that even though the dollar value might not be going the direction he wanted it at this time, he was getting more HEX every day by maintaining.
He got an incentive. He got an incentive to have a more hopeful relationship with his future self.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo. And he's an inspiration every day, dude. He's got his own photography company now. He's awesome. He's awesome. And I mean, he gives me hope when I'm feeling low.
Well done. So that's awesome, Toby.
Yeah.
Especially males, man. They just need some purpose, man. We're basically German shepherds. Yeah. Just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll go do a good job. Like that's 80% of being a male. Just all right, cool. That's me. Go. It's way underrated. I mean, one of those things, there's all these little quotes that I help think of a lens. One of them is like pressure is earned. And like that's one of those things that people should strive to have. Like there should be some stress. You should feel some pressure. You should have some responsibility on these things. And like, yeah, I mean, cool stuff is cool stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to tell people not to take gains or go build cool things or any of that stuff or be profitable, but like purpose will get you a long way.
I actually locked up some of my least favorite crypto. Did a little experiment on myself. It's called USDC, but I locked some of it in Time Pays Me under a behavioral goal. And I had an explosion of productivity. But the interesting part is that it wasn't towards the goal that I had put, but it was still worth the money. So I didn't know before I started where I would put all of this newfound motivation. And I thought that it would be directed in a certain area. But in fact, of course, like there could be other explanations for why like I had a burst of productivity, but I find it really fascinating that there's this overlap between what I've seen other people report in Hex and what I've seen with this latest experiment that I did with Time Pays Me. And I'm like very hopeful for the world that if if there is something here that's emergent that helps mental health, helps productivity. I mean, do you realize that there could be an inflation that occurs that gets paid for if everybody's just more productive without coercion? Like when you can use technology and you can use like psychology strategies and stuff to make people better versions of themselves, and you're not making them do it, but you're giving them the tools that they need to be, there's a big difference between like forcing somebody down a centralized path of what they think is good for you. But there's a belief out there in psychology that like people have adaptive responses to things. And so most people will improve themselves if you give them the right tools. And I just think fiat might have been a good tool for a lot of years, but I think this version of crypto is probably better.
There's a study I'll have to send you, Maddie. It's really neat. It's this experiment, and I'm going to butcher a few of the particulars, but the point will get across. They have this stack of paper, and they say, and I think they start at like $5. They're like, hey, fold me a paper airplane, and I'll pay you $5. So you fold a paper airplane, and in one version of the experiment, they take the paper airplane and they just set it in a box, and then it goes down to like, all right, it's $4.95, $4.90, and they just kind of keep going down, right? And in one experiment, they keep putting the airplane in a box. And then when it gets full, they have a guy come in, take the box, and leave. You have no idea what goes on. Nothing is said. They just physically put the airplanes in the box and then they carry them out. And then in the other one, they take it and they crumble the airplane up and they throw it away. And then they give you a paper and they keep offering. Simply the fact that their work is not destroyed. They could care less about the airplanes. They never see them fly. They don't see what they go. Just the difference in this is literally just a task where I'm just physically being paid versus, hey, the airplanes exist in some place, and it's like an 80% difference in the rate when they stop.
Wow.
It's paper airplanes that you never see fly, but just literally just the difference of I'm doing this for nothing other than money, and people stop way faster. Like I'll have to go find it so we can get through the rates. Maybe it's one of those things you just be interested in digging out a little more, but something as dumb as paper airplanes, the gap in when people stop is astronomical. It's way higher than people think.
Oh yeah, purpose is everything, bro.
Great
It's
example.
like I mean, I didn't realize it in such I mean, I kind of got it, I understood it made sense, like on a philosophical level. But it's like, I've been retired for about a year and a half now, and that was kind of part of my struggle, because there was a portion of it where it's like, it's like I'm retired at 50. It's like, this is awesome. I should be doing cartwheels down the street every day. And then there was this other part of me that was just like something didn't feel right. And I had gone from being uber productive. It's like I had so many responsibilities all the time and was, considered on a lot of levels like a super stressed out person, but it was all that anxiety and stress was being utilized to like accomplish things. And then that's like, that was my purpose. Right. And then, so as that all went away, I had to kind of find ways to give what I was doing purpose. Right. So part of it, I mean, even as small as it might seem to some, is being a regular here with Maddie. And I mean, that was no easy. I mean, Maddie, God bless him for being so patient with me, because it's like I wasn't coming every Tuesday, right? It's like he'd invite me, and then it's like something would come up, and it's like I just couldn't get the routine down. And now it's like I look forward to every Tuesday. It's like that's one of those little pieces that kind of help define like what I'm doing with my life and what my purpose is being on here with you guys and trying to make the world a better place in whatever small way this does that, and then finding purpose in other things that I'm putting energy into. But and I'm right now I'm not making any money. I'm not making any money.
And
but
that's how the viewers at home feel, right? Like they get to hang out with us every Tuesday night live for the past 159 weeks, if you go back to Quanking. So it's been a continuous opportunity for people to build community, and so awesome.
I think I've done it before a few times, and maybe I've shown Toby. Maddie, have you guys ever seen my DMs on Telegram?
Oh God.
No.
I bet it's ridiculous. Oh wow.
Oh, hold on, I got the screen.
It's like you're touching the screen, so.
All right.
Oh yeah, it's endless, I'm sure. Just nonstop. forever. La-di-da. Can we play some music in the background?
It'll just never stop.
Right.
It just goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on.
Well, you're one of the if not the best spoken person in the community. So
absolutely, yeah,
appreciate it. Well, and they're just, I mean, some of the time, one of those things like on purpose, man. Some of those conversations on things just, it's crazy how many times, like I said, so many of these people here will just reach out and like, man, now I get people, man, that just tell me thank you, man. I bring up gratitude all the time. Some of the stuff that you're talking about, man. Like, a lot of the stuff I do is not necessarily like plus EV. It's not like every conversation I'm doing this or that. It's like, I just like doing that stuff. That's one of those things I make fun of occasionally when people are like, oh, when I'm making X amount, I won't be sitting here on Telegram or Twitter, this and that. I'm like, I probably will.
Maybe you will be, right? maybe you will be.
Yeah, man. Like they're so insane, man. Like and like that's one thing too. Like, you get the, I mean, everyone's going to get some of this, this and that, and you're gonna get some shade, but I mean, the amount of positivity and gratitude is overwhelming. Like it's not even 10 to 1, just a huge amount. Someone had a question today in LL, and I just, answered real quick. Wasn't even a big deal. And then I get a DM and I went and looked and he's like, hey, you helped my dad, Greg. Thanks, brother. And I was like, well, that's cool, man. Yeah. Anyway, so that stuff is wild. So yeah, like the purpose and being around and doing cool stuff is pretty gnarly, man. Like it makes a big difference.
Well, the access is so important too, especially at these early stages. And I mean, hopefully that continues. But if you think of CeFi, it's like, if you have an issue or you have a question about something with your banking thing, it's like, maybe you get a chat bot, or maybe you get like a chat.
If the chat bot's on.
Thing. Yeah, if the chat bot's on, right? And then it's like whoever you do talk to, it's like, or even if you want to try to go to your branch, you got to make an appointment to like talk to someone in person or whatever. And it's like, and even then it's like, they're not going out their way to help you. They've got their agenda, and it's like they're just trying to keep you stuck right where you're at. Where here, it's like genuinely people like yourself are trying to help educate people, and that pays huge dividends, man. It's like I feel so much joy when my DMs don't look like yours, but it's like they've been pretty consistent. I mean, if you go all the way back to the Telegram admin days, and so many conversations with people, and it's fulfilling, and they genuinely are very grateful that we take the time to like answer a question or whatever. And it's like, bro, it's like, why are you in it if you're not willing to like help the next guy along? That's DeFi, right? It's like, if I want to be above you on the ladder and like pointing down at you and expecting you to do things to like, make my life better without like benefiting your own, then that's CeFi. There's plenty of opportunities over there. I like DeFi where the rising tide raises all the boats, right? It's more fun. Like I always say, it's not fun getting rich alone. Let's fucking go.
It's unfortunately, it's got to be said whenever we bring up the topic of DMs that scammers will impersonate us, and they will direct message you, and they will steal all your money, and we won't know anything about it. And so if any of us are ever messaging you asking for money, that's not us. And you just saw at the beginning of the episode a virtual copy of me that wasn't me, that was saying things I never said. And so even if it's in video form, I would not participate in
absolutely
in direct messages that are coming to you out of nowhere, because it is so profitable, and people unfortunately are falling victim to that. So be very careful.
And that's one of the reasons on that. Like, if everyone ever has message and I'm like, go get it from somewhere else, it's not because I don't have the answer and don't want to tell you, man. Like, I'm not doing it to be an ass. I don't want you to trust me. Don't trust on Telegram. Like, go get it from the official source. I'm not going to send you contract addresses, man. I'm not going to send you any of that stuff because I don't want you to do it the next time. I don't want you to go like learn to go grab those things the right way and triple check that stuff, man. Be safe. Don't lose funds.
Yeah, teach the men how to fish. Teach them how to fish. Don't give them a fish. It's like, it's back to the thing before. It's like, if people are looking for a button to push to get rich, fuck off. I'm sorry. I'm not. You're not gonna get me to help you.
Every time I hear that, though,
you want to learn how to
phrase
fish,
got ruined for me, Toby. There was a guy who, when I was originally getting into sales and sponsoring stuff, he told me this phrase, man, and literally I think that quote was from like Jesus, and somehow this guy that for me ruined it.
Yeah.
He said, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you're an asshole. You ruin the market for everybody.
That's pretty funny.
Can't get it out of my head, man. That guy told me that when I was like 19. That's all I can hear, man.
That's pretty funny.
Yep.
And sadly true. But, but I would rather have people like, doing their own research, like figuring this stuff out on their own. And then that way you can have more confidence in what you're doing. And then you don't fall into the whatabouts, like, well, what about that thing you told me to do? It's like, no, it's like, don't do that. If people are telling you, like, go watch the movie, Ice of Stakes, go watch it. Like Richard says right in it, don't trust, if you shouldn't trust, what is it? Don't mistake one man's confidence for competence or something like that. It's like, if you get into the habit of trusting men like me, you are going to get the shit scammed out of you. Right. So it's like, just because we are confident in what we're talking about, do your own research, figure it out for yourself. It's like, and see what works for you. It's not that hard. And on PulseChain, it's exceptionally cheap to try out a lot of these things. So it's like, to me, it's the salad days. It's, not just because we're so broke from the bear market, we can't be eating steak, but it's like the salad days in the sense that it's the good times. It's the youthful, exuberant times, right? Google it.
What do you think, Crispy?
Well, I don't know, Maddie. I don't know. Big topic with the DMs. Of course, then I'm laughing at the chat out here. It's really a good warning, right, on the DMs, or as far as scammers and stuff go. For anybody who's not been scammed in real life or had to deal with that, that's good. But I want to know why I only get what appear to be elderly women sending me their DM. So you guys tell me why that's happening.
They're looking for a sugar baby, Crispy.
I guess.
Yeah, they want a little sugar baby.
I must be on some list,
I love it.
Maddie, have we made the good news public yet? Are we doing that now? Are we doing that later?
What? Uh-oh.
Well, I like
it's
wow,
Come
Crispy.
on.
Congratulations. You guys are adorable.
So basically I made a big announcement about how I'm going to be incorporating some new technology into the HEX conference. And I was like really blessed, first of all, that when I made that announcement, like tons of people jumped on it. I think it was one of my most viewed. It's like my most viewed post. It's like when I had Richard, last time Richard streamed live was with me and other Hexicans this time last year. And even that tweet with the live video doesn't have as many views as this one does, where it's lip syncing translations into other languages. And this is part of the idea that if we want to get the word of crypto out there as a human right that everybody deserves, well, we need to translate it in a way that's accessible and exciting to people. And so the AI translation is a significant cost in the conference. And so I had to ask certain brands to like basically make a donation. And it was like it made the difference between what we're going to be able to do. And so Liquid Loans is one of the brands that I chose because I was already so favorable towards them in terms of what you've heard me say today. And it's not like a situation where there's like I'm giving special treatment to people. It's like I'm going to recognize that you guys helped me to do this by putting your logo on some things, and I'm volunteering to do that. And so thank you guys for helping to make all this stuff happen to where I'm not I'm not losing all my money trying to put this stuff on.
Yeah, man, I actually wasn't sure. I know that we had a couple conversations, all that kind of good stuff. It's as much just it's a tip of the hat to you and all the good stuff you do for the community. All the way back to, again, the HEX conference and seeing you help and the things you did to help participate with even the 555 and Orbit and all those guys. Just man, you're a pillar, brother. I mean, you've done a lot for a lot of people, And yeah, anything that we can do to help, we're more than happy to. So it's very cool to see it go on. I think the AI component is going to be just cool as hell by itself, but I think it brings in more voices, more interesting things to go on, going for the whole record, just adding all these extra things. Anything we can do to add audience and make these things cool is really powerful. So, appreciation and pride for all the cool stuff that you've done. Thanks for it. And then, we appreciate being able to be a part of it, and great work, man. Great work.
I haven't unveiled this yet on YouTube, so there's a bunch of people that will just be seeing it for the first time now. Oh wait, I have to switch. So this is a picture of everybody who's spoken at a previous HEX conference. As you can see here, it's like a group photo. Oops, that's the old version. Let me throw up the new one here. But basically the idea is that there are 170 people who I individually went through and took a screenshot of them, like looking like their personality, basically, Papa B's holding up a sign that says like how many billion, trillion, gazillion, like combinations there are to a seed phrase. And like, I'm going like this, we're live. And, everybody's like looking like themselves. And it just, the image kind of like melts my heart in a way that I don't know is,
don't you make me cry, Matty Allen. Don't you make me cry on stream.
This yet. Let me see. So,
that's so cool.
This is just about the entire community here.
Cool.
Well, it's everybody who's been on stream, and I don't know if my screen isn't big enough. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so I just like scroll along here, and I see Randy Hlarski there holding up his DeFi. Like everybody's got their own personality, and it's really special what we have here in this community. And so the reason why. There he is.
Yeah.
The reason why I made this, other than just appreciating everybody in the community, is I also haven't talked about this yet on YouTube. We're going to set the record for the most YouTubers live.
Yes. Let's fucking go. That's going to be awesome.
That'll be a world record for the most live on one screen at the same time. There's Richard there in the middle.
So cool, man.
Yeah. Oh, I got that. Dang, I'm right above Richard. I feel honored.
Yeah.
And between Fashion Coder and Richard, that's a sandwich that, well,
look at the, this is Hex Ray Vision when he was interviewing Richard last year at the conference, and he was asking like, based on the length of my beard, like how long do I have to wait for PulseChain to be released?
I forgot about that. That was hilarious.
That was historically funny.
Yeah.
He was the only one who had the nerve to ask, like,
right.
Well, maybe I did too, but yeah, you get it. Like he had the best way of asking for sure.
That's pretty good.
So yeah, so basically what we're going to be doing is like, I need people to go sign up now. If you've never been a YouTuber, that's okay. You will become a YouTuber through this process of participating in a 1 hour and 15-minute event on Zoom, but you're going to sign up for it now by going to hexconference.com and clicking on the link to go to Eventbrite. And Eventbrite, you're going to get a free ticket to be on screen. And you get to choose like which group you want to be in, because I have to actually run 5 or 6 different Zoom rooms at the same time in order to break the world record and get everybody on screen all at once. And so that will be, that's going to be something that you can do. You go in there and you just have to have your URL for YouTube so we can verify you as you're going to participate in this world record. And then when everybody's on screen all at once on January 6th in the afternoon in the USA, and it'd be Saturday, it's Saturday afternoon in the USA, it's Sunday morning in Australia, and in Europe, it's going to be the nighttime or whatever on Saturday night, January 6th. Everybody will be on screen all at once, and
that's going to be crazy.
We're going to go around the room and, hear from everybody, just like, what's one word of what you love about Hex? And now like 150 or 200 people all answer like somehow all in order. And basically then will fill up the hour and 15 minutes easily without anybody having too much pressure on them. So this is the easiest entrance point that you can have into like being in a group picture with all the hexicans from all around the world who have, you're seeing here, plus more people than you're seeing here. We had 35,000 people sign a petition. There is a group that's watching, thousands on the replay that are out there, but I need your help to get the word out to them that this is going to be a fun thing to participate in. And I've even got the Hex photographer, Pascal, coming on the segment to get everybody amped up to like all point up and to the right at the same time and that kind of thing. And so I'm begging everybody out there, please help me get the word out about signing up for this event, because we do have like 250 spots like off the bat. And I'm putting a ton of effort into this in order to pull it off. And all I need from you is if you have a channel or anything, if you know anybody else who's in crypto, please invite them to this world record attempt or event for the most YouTubers live. And you can learn more at hexconference.com.
Love it. Good stuff, Matty. Props to you, bro. Matty's the hardest working Hexican. I mean, I'm just going to say it. It's like that guy has been grinding for so long. And I'm so glad to see you get some sponsorships and people like Liquid Loans helping you out. Absolutely so well deserved. I mean, I know that you were out of pocket for years on stuff that you have done for the community. And I mean, and you can't even, I mean, if you consider the time that you've put in, I mean, not just your own dollars, it's nuts, dude. Your level of dedication has been absolutely inspirational. So big props to you. Excited to be.
It doesn't feel like work always.
Right.
There's only a few tasks here and there that feel like work, but I do it for the same reason you guys do. That I'm inspired right back, by you guys and this community, and so
I'm stoked. I can't wait.
Yeah,
look forward to it.
I am thankful.
It's going to be
I am thankful for all of you guys as well. So.
Group hug.
Yeah.
Can we do a group hug? All of us.
Yeah.
Let's build a bridge.
Do it.
No, I can't. No tiaras. It's a no tiara zone. Beards only. Oh, funny. But
that picture of me is funny. The one that on that collage. Yeah. I was at the premiere streaming to the conference in the airport, flying to the conference. Nice. I got my times mixed up, and I literally am there sitting there talking. I'm like, all right, guys, I'll see you all in 2 hours. I hang up. I literally close the laptop. I'm sitting in the airport.
There it is.
That's funny. Oh,
yeah, that's an airport.
I close the laptop, and I walk 15 feet to the right, get on the plane, and then go land, and then go to the conference.
That's awesome. You couldn't.
I love it.
You couldn't do better timing than that, right? Yep. That's awesome.
And then there was some guy walking behind me eating a cheeseburger, and then people in the chat started trolling. They're like, "Is he coming with you?" And I guess he was kind of looking at the screen eating. Yeah, I was that was at the premiere. So I literally streamed to the conference and then flew to the conference right as I closed the laptop.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Awesome. So Matty, to go sign up for this thing, hexconference.com.
Yeah, and it'll link you to a place. Basically what I'm asking is, if you've spoken before, please sign up again to speak, and that's a different sign up than the world record event. And so if you have no interest in speaking on a 1 hour panel where it's just 9 people, if you're thinking I want to be on screen with 250 people and only say like a couple words or maybe more than that, if we have time, but to be part of history, right? Because this is like a Mr. Beast style thing. This is like, we're going to be able to keep pointing back to this. Like, hey, Bitcoiners, where's your world record for the most YouTubers live? Oh, that's right. You actually don't have the most YouTubers of an organic community that is so loud on Twitter. We can measure it. We can see the view numbers. Like, I wonder why it is. That Hex has a stronger community by all these metrics than your community. Oh, maybe it's because we time lock. Maybe it's because we're onto something here. So that's
Sweet.
the idea.
So
like please, like, get the word out. The URL is mostlive.eventbrite.com. And then, but you can get there on hexconference.com. And there's like detailed instructions here that you can read that we, don't need to be gone into here. And basically, but I think we covered the main points. And then if you still want to sign up, like you have one more day to sign up to be a speaker at the conference. And that you're going to go to a special Survey Monkey that is linked to from hexconference.com. So those are the details. And I appreciate your help in getting the word out.
Bang, bang.
Excellent. I just tweeted it out to my whopping 7,000 followers, but every little bit helps.
Absolutely. And every single person in this 170 person group that's been a part of it before, like it makes a serious difference whether you have 200 or one. Maybe you only have one person who you're connected with out there, but the more we make noise about this, I think the more people will participate. And I hope people are as excited about it as I am.
Are you accepting AIs?
That's a great question.
We'll bring our librarian.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like I wanted to find a way to work back in this. I've been using AIs all over the place, and they've been super helpful to me. And I was actually surprised that Liquid Loans, they call it the librarian. It's basically a ChatGPT plugin that is plugged in like really well to their website. It answered all of my deepest, darkest questions about Liquid Loans. And that's really important because I got a really low score on my quiz. There's like a 50 question quiz. So obviously that didn't make me feel very confident, but going into the AI and being able to ask it anything and to know it's not going to like judge me and be like, Maddie, were you paying attention like during the lecture and stuff,
I've been on stream with you 5 times. You don't know?
It's interactive.
Man. It's a lot to absorb.
It's interactive and it's good at figuring out what I'm asking. So I would beg people to go and use tools like that. And because it's a good skill to have to know how to talk to an AI and all that good kind of stuff. So
hey, and I know we're coming up on the end here, but it's like I just didn't want to leave out Fox Mulder. He's like a regular in the chat, so we appreciate that guy. And he was asking like, who you would consider as your competition in the space. And he had mentioned Power City, but I don't think Power City does anything close to what Liquid Loans is doing. I think it's an entirely different animal.
I mean, like people kind of draw the parallels. I mean, there's that like blue ocean, red ocean stuff. The Power City guys are building a whole suite of tools similar to us. Like we have PulseChain Safe. We're working on Fetch, stuff we've never even brought up. Those guys have a variety of things. The reason that everyone always says that is because they're building another fork that has the same stuff as like LL, but it's around PulseX. But I don't really see it as a competitor.
Got it.
If anything, I'd want more stable coins. I'd want more extracted. Every same thing I would tell you about LL, I'd want the same thing to happen over there. Like I want cool stuff. Please. I don't care if you think you're a competitor or not. Come build it on the chain. Like, please do that. Like,
yep. Makes everything better.
Please. Like, build a better LL front end. Make our front end look bad. Like, I think it's pretty, but build a better front end. Like, you could literally compete even on our own contracts. That's what DeFi is. Like, you could boot us out of our own protocol. Like, like build a better front end, build a better product. Please build whatever you want if you build it on PulseChain. And if you need help, let me know.
Sweet. Love it, dude. I love it because I mean that's the sign of true confidence right there. Like when you're actually asking for competition, and because otherwise, people that are just complacent, that doesn't drive innovation and development. So it's like
I would love for us not to have the best front end. I would love that.
Bring it.
Build a better front end.
Go out there and build it.
Build cooler stuff. Build better yield. Like build it all. Come build it.
It's on you, Fox. It's you, bro. Go out there and build it now. You asked the question. Now you get to. Now we're going to put you on the spot.
Yep.
Right on. Well, WaLLrus, a pleasure as always to have you on, man. I think are we about at our limit? Yeah, 2.5. Yep.
Yeah. So
my back's at its limit.
Let's go around the room and tell people where to find you.
I'm going to my couch with an ice pack here in just a couple minutes. So that's where I'll be if you're looking for me. Easiest to find me probably on Twitter, X, Tobiwan_Hexobi. And I will never DM you first, but if you DM me, I always do my best to respond to everybody. And here on Tuesday nights at the pleasure of Mr. Matty Allen with ChrispyMan, my dear friend. And hopefully Briz will be joining us again soon, and then great guests like WaLLrus. So I'm stoked, man. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Merry
it's right around the corner.
Christmas.
So,
Happy holidays.
hey, buddy.
Crispy?
So guys, it's
WaLLrus?
WaLLrus with 2 L's, and it was actually funny enough, it was always 2 L's actually, even before the L thing. So sign of the times, right? So it's WaLLrus official on Twitter. It's WaLLrus on Telegram, but as we've said, there's a ton of issues. So usually it's easier just to like ping in the main chat, and you can make sure and see that, you see the little, I think you see this driver next to mine. Just verify that stuff, especially on Telegram. Twitter, it's a little easier, but just double check. But obviously, I do a lot of stuff on the Liquid Loans chat. I don't do any like independent streaming outside of Liquid Loans because we have 1 million good streamers, and I'd rather go support all those guys, and you guys should too. So again, all the stuff that Maddie's doing, the stuff that Toby's doing, all the cool stuff at hexfire.io, like go support those guys. I try to support them as best I can as well. But yeah, you can come see all my goofy takes and the WaLLrus pictures. And if you guys haven't seen them yet, if you guys remember my old purple WaLLrus, there's some guys doing AI pictures of the WaLLrus like protecting vaults, and they're the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Wow,
so
that's awesome.
I'll have to show a couple of them, man. They're pretty sweet. But yeah, it's WaLLrus or WaLLrus official, guys. And just thanks for all the invitation, all the work you guys do, and appreciate coming on and hanging out.
Yeah, it's always good to see
Thank you so much. And Crispy, where can people find you before we wrap up?
HexFire.io here on YouTube, or HexFire.io.
Dude, Crispy, your streams are kicking ass, by the way. I've been watching your streams lately, and you're getting better by the minute, bro. I'm really
Well,
enjoying
thanks,
it.
Toby. That means a lot from you, buddy.
I made the same observation a week or two ago as well. So yeah,
Maddie
everybody
did.
get out there. Everybody get out there and follow these guys. Their links are in the description below. I always put a lot of work into the description below. So if you haven't visited there on YouTube, what are you doing? Also, I put a lot of effort into t.me/smartvaultme, which is just like where I post my alpha as it's happening for free. And usually it's all the cool stuff. I've been posting a lot of really cool stuff on Twitter lately. So definitely follow me there, MATI all in. And yeah, we've got so much to look forward to here, I think, with the macro situation and with projects like Liquid Loans and having you guys, having the community here, so many impressive people, and really is something special. So thanks for tuning in. Hit the like and subscribe button. And until next time, stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.
Take it easy. Thank you.
That was a good one, guys. I didn't know if